Chapter 286. For the current Long Houchen, his internal spiritual power of level 9 wasn't scary. What was scary was that his external spiritual power was also level 9. Abao's terrifying speed didn't come from his internal spiritual power, but from his body. "Are you afraid?" Abao said coldly. Long Houchen smiled and said, "Why don't you try and you'll know?" As he spoke, his body suddenly became a little illusory. Abao moved his body subconsciously, and a purplish-red halo suddenly lit up under his feet, causing his dragon armor to completely turn purplish-red. He pointed the giant purple sword in his hand in the air, and unexpectedly, another 2A Bao appeared on both sides of his body, and they looked exactly the same as his original body. Doppelganger? This seemed to be somewhat similar to Zhang Fangfang's second spiritual stove of life. The 3A Bao's bodies flickered, but they didn't attack Long Houchen from different directions. Instead, the three of them formed a sharp triangle and rushed towards Long Houchen. The three giant purple swords were raised above his head at the same time, and only the one in the center had a gradual light. It was obvious that Abao didn't intend to hide his original body from Long Houchen. Ding! The eternal sword was raised, and it blocked the three giant purple swords, but it only made a sound. Suddenly, a strong aura of life burst out from Long Houchen's body, and then the eternal sword in his hand turned jade green. Thousands of rays of jade light burst out, and all 3A Baos were engulfed in it. At this moment, Abao felt like his body was sucked into a huge jade-green waterfall, and the feeling of being unable to resist shocked him. Just like how Long Houchen underestimated him, he also underestimated Long Houchen. Eternal three swords, all things awakened. Of the three glowing orbs surrounding Long Houchen, the emerald light orb had completely fused with the eternal sword. The emerald light lasted in the air for a full 5 seconds before gradually dissipating. Abao reappeared 300 meters in front of Long Houchen. He looked a little disheveled. His two clones had disappeared, and there were at least 20 crisscrossing burn marks on his dragon armor. "You're no match for me." Long Houchen raised his head slightly and looked down at his opponent. Abao snorted disdainfully and said, "It's too early to say that. Do you think you can hurt me with this level of attack?" As he spoke, the purplish-red halo beneath his feet flashed again. The instant his dragon armor turned purplish-red, all the scars on the dragon armor disappeared. "What a strange domain." Long Houchen smiled. He didn't seem to be in a hurry at all, nor did he take the initiative to attack. This time, the purplish-red light didn't fade. Abao's eyes gradually turned the same color, and the dragon wings on his back slowly spread open. The sky behind him turned completely purplish-red. Then, a monstrous pressure burst forth from the purplish-red light. Long Houchen was the first to bear the brunt of the pressure, and his body was pushed thousands of meters away by the pressure. The throne of God of Eternity and Creation automatically emitted a foot-thick white light, protecting Long Houchen's body from being affected by the pressure. Not far away, a pitch-black figure flashed and disappeared 100 meters behind Huang Shuo. She was actually forced out of her hiding space by the pressure. Although she immediately retreated and hid herself again, it was clear how terrifying the pressure was. "Supreme artifact?" Long Houchen blurted out. Abao had really surprised him again. The purplish-red light in Abao's eyes burned like flames, and in the middle of the pitch-black space behind him, a purplish-red light pillar also lit up. The thick light pillar had a diameter of more than a mile. The moment it appeared, the originally bright sky instantly turned dark. The moment the huge light pillar rose, the sun seemed to have been shot down and disappeared without a trace. The huge purplish-red light pillar was engraved with countless strange runes. Most importantly, there was a purplish-red giant dragon crawling on top of the huge light pillar. The terrifying pressure even caused the air to collapse and the sky to distort. The appearance of this huge pillar gave people a strong sense of shock. "This is the Demon Emperor's Demon God Pillar?" Long Houchen was shocked. Could it be that Abao had already inherited the Demon Emperor's position? No, that's not right. The Demon Emperor's heaven-defying demon dragon pillar was completely black gold, and it was much larger than this purplish-red pillar in front of him. However, this purplish-red pillar was clearly emitting the same aura as the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar. You didn't expect this, did you, Long Houchen? Abao looked coldly at his opponent in the distance. The heaven-defying demon dragon pillar flickering with purplish-red light behind him gave him unprecedented confidence. I am the inheritor of the Demon Emperor, the future 7th Demon Emperor of the demons. Father Emperor has given me a part of the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar's power. Although I can only use the mirror image of the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar, I can still use 1/3 of its power to deal with you. That's enough. His right hand held the purple sword, and his left hand pointed to the sky. Suddenly, a purplish-red light fell from the sky from the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar and instantly fell on Abao's body. The purplish-red giant dragon on the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar seemed to come to life. It roared and pounced on Abao. The thick purplish-red light caused the surrounding air to shatter and explode. In an instant, a purplish-red armor appeared on Abao's body, which was covered with the dragon body armor. This purplish-red armor seemed to be related to dragons. The helmet was a dragon's mouth, and every part of his body was covered with thick dragon scales. His shoulders were 2 huge dragon claws, and the purplish-red light flowed. This armor seemed to be alive. Even his purple sword was covered with a layer of purplish-red scales. Long Houchen didn't attack Abao during this transformation. He just watched quietly. This was only 1/3 of the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar's power. If the Demon Emperor was here, his power would only be more terrifying. At this time, the ability Abao displayed just happened to let Long Houchen personally experience the power of the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar. After being covered by the purplish-red light, Abao's entire temperament changed. A terrifying aura rose in a straight line. Around his body, purplish-red lightning flashed, densely forming a purplish-red electric net. The combination of darkness and lightning, this was the true power of the heaven-defying demon dragon royalty. At the same time, Long Houchen made a judgment, and pointed the eternal sword in his hand at Abao. Suddenly, a white light broke through the darkness of the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar and fell on Abao's body. Light of judgment. Abao looked coldly at Long Houchen, but he didn't even move to block. With a loud bang, white light splashed, but he raised his purple dragon shocking sky sword at Long Houchen as if nothing had happened. At this moment, crystal-clear milky white light also burst out from Long Houchen's body. Eternal Domain. As Abao's expression changed slightly, the white light almost instantly illuminated the world behind Long Houchen. The white light dispelled a large part of the darkness brought by the purplish-red light, and forcibly formed a confrontation with the terrifying aura of the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar. In the next moment, Long Houchen and Abao moved almost at the same time. 2 figures in the air collided with each other at the border of the 2 domains. Boom! At the moment when the eternal sword and the purple dragon shocking sky sword collided, the whole world seemed to collapse, and the whole world appeared in an instant of darkness and whiteness. In the distance, Huang Shuo instantly retreated. Although the powerful assassin could appear at any time, he couldn't care less. After activating the power of the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar, Abao's strength was completely above him. Coupled with the power of the eternal and creation throne of God under the activation of Long Houchen, the instantaneous explosion was too terrifying. Neither Long Houchen nor Abao was repelled by the terrifying power. The purplish-red giant sword and the white giant sword seemed to stick together in the air. Long Houchen and Abao also faced each other at such a close distance. The power of darkness and light collided with each other, and neither side gave way. The eternal domain and Abao's heaven-defying demon god domain also fully collided. This was a pure competition of strength. Both sides fully combined their equipment, external spiritual power, and internal spiritual power to resist the opponent's pressure. Abao's external spiritual power was completely above Long Houchen's, but now he was the one with a ferocious expression. Long Houchen held the eternal sword with both hands and floated there unmoving like a mountain. No matter how hard Abao activated his own power, he couldn't push him back. However, Long Houchen didn't press forward either. He just stared at Abao with a burning gaze, allowing the power of both sides to fully collide. Huang Xuan nervously guarded against the assassin that could appear at any time. At the same time, he paid attention to the battle between Long Houchen and Abao. He could see that although Abao had activated part of the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar's power, his overall cultivation seemed to be inferior to Long Houchen's. However, for some reason, Long Houchen didn't seem to be giving it his all. The intense situation caused Huang Shuo, the commander of the Black Dragon Guards, to forget the most important thing, which was the fate of the other Black Dragon Guards. Speaking of which, he couldn't be blamed. After the Eternal Domain and the heaven-defying Demon God Domain collided, all the spiritual power within a radius of tens of miles was strongly disrupted. Even if he wanted to contact his clansmen, it would be difficult, not to mention that there was an extremely terrifying assassin beside him. As the battle between Long Houchen and Abao began, the Black Dragon Guards, who were in charge of chasing the Light of Dawn monster hunters, also took action. Among them, the Black Dragon Guards who were chasing after Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi had the easiest time. Yang Wenjiao got off the Starlight Unicorn, spread his wings, and fled into the distance at full speed. However, in terms of speed, the Starlight Unicorn was still far from the heaven-defying Demon Dragon. The distance between them was getting shorter and shorter. The heaven-defying Demon Dragon was the #1 race among the demons. Individually, they were powerful. Coupled with the Demon Emperor's strong control over the demons, they were all arrogant. After chasing Yang Wenjiao for a while, the two Black Dragon secret guards realized that Yang Wenjiao's cultivation was much lower than they had imagined. The Starlight Unicorn he was riding on was at most at the threshold of the 8th order. For a night, the strength of his mount companion would increase along with his cultivation, unless he chose a low-level mount from the start. Although the possibility of the Starlight Unicorn reaching the 9th stage was very small, the powerful Starlight Unicorn could reach the peak of the 8th stage when it matured. Yang Wenjiao's mount, no matter how you looked at it, had just reached the 8th stage. This meant that Yang Wenjiao's cultivation could not possibly be at the 9th stage. The Black Dragon Guards were all 9th stage powerhouses, and their external spiritual energy was over 100,000. As the two Black Dragon Guards got closer, the disdain in their hearts grew stronger. Was such a weak human worth both of them attacking together? Yang Wenjiao looked back at them. Seeing that the distance between them was getting closer and closer, and he was about to enter the enemy's attack range, he seemed to be getting anxious. He urged the Starlight Unicorn to quickly descend, and it just so happened that there was a forest below. Trying to escape with the help of the forest? The two Black Dragon Guards couldn't help but reveal savage and cruel expressions. One of them raised his right hand, and a pitch-black ball of light was already descending toward the forest below. The ball of light exploded about 100 meters away from the forest, and a layer of black mist shrouded the area below. In an instant, large swathes of the forest began to wither and corrode, turning into a patch of black and disappearing. The Starlight Unicorn seemed to be startled. Its wings became a little unsteady, and it suddenly plummeted. The two Black Dragon Guards didn't suspect anything, and sped up at the same time to kill the humans so that they could report back. The Starlight Unicorn suddenly flapped its wings when it was less than 50 meters away from the ground. At the same time, Yang Wenjiao's body shone with a golden light as he injected his own spirit energy into the Starlight Unicorn's body to help it stabilize its body and regain control of its balance. However, this also greatly affected his speed. The two Black Dragon Praetorian Guards quickly approached him. they did not even bother to use their weapons. The Black Dragon Praetorian guard on the left waved his right hand and made a grabbing motion at Yang Wenjiao. Suddenly, a huge black dragon claw shadow formed in midair. It was nearly 10 meters wide and went straight for Yang Wenjiao and the Starlight Unicorn. Yang Wenjiao suddenly turned around. In each of his hands, there was a heavy sword that was flickering with an orange-red luster. The golden sword turned into a faint mist of light and instantly burst forth, making him look like a giant sun on the back of the Starlight Unicorn. Glory of the Holy Sun. This was a legacy skill that originated from Yang Haohan, the Knight of the Seal of the Knights Templar's defense and coordination. The light of the glory of the Holy Sun was so intense that the two black dragon guards felt a burning pain all over their bodies, and they temporarily lost their vision. The two black dragon guards attacked Yang Wenjiao at almost the same time, but Yang Wenjiao retracted the Starlight Unicorn's wings and fell to the ground like a freefall, causing the two black dragon guards' attacks to hit nothing but air. At the same time, 6 light spots of different colors flew out from the forest below from 6 different directions. The 6 light spots instantly intertwined in the air to form a huge magic array, which enveloped the two black dragon guards who had temporarily lost their vision. The black dragon guards were indeed the most powerful force under the Demon Emperor. When their attacks missed, they immediately felt that something was wrong. The two black dragon guards held hands and let out a roar at the same time. With a loud dragon roar, the shadows of 2 huge black dragons instantly circled around their bodies, protecting them. Before they could see again, they did not hesitate to use their strongest defensive skill, the demonic dragon's barrier. Moreover, it was cast by the two of them together, so one could imagine how powerful their defense was. Unfortunately, they did not know what kind of opponent they were facing. The 6 figures instantly appeared in 6 different directions, representing blue water, red fire, green wind, yellow earth, black darkness, and golden light. The 6 elements were gathered together. They were 6 powerful warriors with the soul of the strong burning in their eyes. The powerful skills from ancient times were unleashed in the next moment. The 6 lights instantly intertwined, and the 6-colored hexagram formed by them instantly shone brightly. The 6 powerful warriors were like 6 intertwining stars in the hexagram. The creator of this magic array was the divine law of necromancy, Calamity Necromancer Electrolux. Its name was the Elemental Dove. In the instant that the formation was activated, the 6 powerhouses had already disappeared. The 6 colored rays of light instantly formed an outline. When the final point connected, a huge light pillar in the shape of a 6-pointed star soared into the sky, completely engulfing the bodies of the 2 black dragon guards who were using the demonic dragon's armor. By this time, it was too late for the black dragon guards to react. The black dragon's barrier instantly turned 6-colored. Next, it was followed by their sturdy bodies that did not have unlimited defense. Below, Yang Wenjiao, who had already regained control of his body, looked at the 6-colored hexagram rising high into the sky. His heart could not help but race. What a terrifying power! At the same time, he swung his right fist with all his might. It was done. Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi had recently reached the bottleneck of the 8th Order and were about to break through to the 9th Order. With the help of the Dagger Vanguard, they felt that they were on the verge of a breakthrough. Looking at the elemental dove in the sky, Yang Wenjiao felt that he had grasped the most important point. Duan Yi's experience was almost the same as Yang Wenjiao's. However, he did not have the Starlight Unicorn as a mount. Hence, when he escaped, his speed was slower. Therefore, the only difference between him and Yang Wenjiao was that he used his shield to block an attack from the Black Dragon Guards. He was hit so hard that he spat out a mouthful of blood, but he also accelerated his fall. Facing the 2 Black Dragon Guards were 6 magicians. The magic version of the Elemental Dove was even more terrifying than the warrior version. This was because it was slightly weaker in terms of attack power, but it could appear from a long distance. They were both at the 9th Order. In terms of physical strength and weapons, the Holy Guards from the Tower of Eternity were no match for the Black Dragon Guards. However, in terms of battle experience, teamwork, and the combination of attributes, the Holy Guards had the upper hand. Even in a one-on-one situation, it would not be easy for the Black Dragon Guards to kill the Holy Guards, let alone when it was 6 against 2. Come on, chase after me. I'm so scared. Lin Xian flew in front while teasing the 2 Black Dragon Guards who were chasing after him. He was a magician. Although his flying speed was quite good, it was still inferior to the 2 defiant demon dragons who were born with the ability to fly. However, the 2 Black Dragon Guards could not catch up to him. Because, above Lin Xian's head, there was an azure sun condensing, and fireballs were constantly flying out. They didn't seem powerful, but they flew extremely far, far beyond the attack range of the heaven-defying demonic dragon. Moreover, the explosive power was tyrannical, and the temperature was strangely high, to the point that the 2 Black Dragon Imperial Guards couldn't close the distance between them even after being provoked by him. Among the Black Dragon Guards, there were strong and weak ones. Perhaps Lin Xian was unlucky, but among the 2 Black Dragon Guards chasing him, one was a 9th Order Level 2, and the other was a 3rd Order Level 9 Domain Master. After a series of provocations, the 2 Black Dragon Guards were enraged. The 3rd Order Level 9 Black Dragon Guard roared at the sky, and with a shake of his body, he revealed his true form. A huge black dragon over 30 meters long appeared in midair, its purplish-red eyes glinting fiercely. Its companion immediately rode on the defiant demon dragon's back, and the demon dragon flapped its wings and charged at Lin Xian at full speed. A layer of pitch-black light spread out from his body at the same time he launched his charge, forming a huge dragon that was over 100 meters long. This was the defiant demon dragon clan's signature domain, the demon dragon's domain. Almost 70% of the defiant demon dragons were able to comprehend this domain. With the demon dragon's domain opening the way, the effect of Lin Xian's heart flame-bursting fireball was completely nullified. It exploded on the demon dragon's domain but could not advance an inch. Seeing that the enemies were getting closer, Lin Xian's smile grew wider. He said, "I'm so scared." That's not right. I have medicine. What's there to be scared of?" 2 figures appeared behind Lin Xian silently. At the same time, Lin Xian threw a pill into his mouth. Then, the 2 Black Dragon Guards saw the most shocking scene in their lives. The blue sun above Lin Xian's head suddenly expanded. In just a few breaths' time, it turned into a huge blue ball of light with a diameter of 100 meters. The blazing temperature turned the air into water, and even the 2 defiant demon dragons could not see Lin Xian's figure clearly. They had no idea what Lin Xian had done. However, in the next moment, a huge dragon head emerged from the huge blue sun with a diameter of 100 meters. The dragon head was naturally blue. Just the length of its head was the same as the length of the defiant demon dragon when it used the demon dragon's domain. How thick was a huge dragon head that was 100 meters long? It almost occupied the entire blazing sun in the sky. Its fiery eyes stared at the rapidly approaching defiant demon dragon. The blue flames burned wildly, as if it was angered by the defiant demon dragon's provocation. The 2 Black Dragon Guards felt that something was wrong. The one who had transformed into a defiant demon dragon turned around and wanted to run. However, a huge suction force ruined their chances of escape. The huge blue dragon head opened its mouth and made a swallowing motion. Within a 10-kilometer radius, countless tiny specks of light suddenly appeared. They were all formed by the condensation and manifestation of the fire element. These tiny specks of light were like rivers flowing into the sea as they flew towards the gigantic blue flame dragon head, which was swallowing the dragon head whole. They could not run, but the defiant demon dragon was powerful. Seeing that the situation was not good, the other Black Dragon Guard also roared and transformed into a giant dragon. He and his partner desperately flapped their wings in an attempt to break free from the blue dragon head's control. They could not even muster the slightest intention to fight back. This was because the aura emitted by the blue dragon head was at least the standard of a Tier 9 or Level 6. It was completely beyond the scope of their resistance. Under the joint efforts of the two heaven-defying demonic dragons, they seemed to be escaping from the suction force bit by bit. However, because they were escaping, their backs were facing the terrifying dragon head, so they did not see that the huge blue dragon head was getting brighter and brighter. Not good. The two black dragon guards roared in their hearts at the same time. They could not see behind them, but they could feel the change in temperature. Just as fear appeared in their hearts, the terrifying suction force suddenly disappeared, and the entire space seemed to freeze for a moment. Next, a huge blue fireball with a diameter of nearly 100 meters became the background of the two black dragon guards. Who said that the fireball spell was a low-level spell? It depended on the size and the degree of condensation. The two defiant demon dragons were like two little bugs as they were swallowed by the huge blue fireball. The fireball flew straight forward and soared for a full kilometer before it bloomed in the sky with a brilliance more dazzling than the sun, completely turning the sky blue. The huge dragon head slowly shrank, and the holy sun domain disappeared. Lin Xin and the two figures behind him reappeared in the sky. Feeling the dense fire elements in the air, the two eternal heroes beside Lin Xin couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Even with their thousands of years of experience, they had never seen such a terrifying fireball, and this fireball was created by them with Lin Xin's help. Little Lin, your holy sun spell is really terrifying. The two eternal heroes who appeared beside Lin Xin were the wind and water magicians. The one who spoke was the wind magician who wanted to pass on the inheritance to Lin Xin. Lin Xin chuckled and said, "I didn't know that it would be so fun to become stronger. Thank you, seniors." The water magician chuckled and said, "I'm more curious about the fact that this conjoined spirit-enhancing pill you refined is actually effective on us necromancers." Lin Xin said proudly, "They all call me Brother Medicine. In terms of strength, I'm not as good as Boss and the others, but when it comes to refining medicine, I'm the strongest in the group. As long as there's spiritual power, the effect of my conjoined spirit-enhancing pill can be released." The two eternal heroes were powerhouses at the 5th rank of the 9th rank. Under their joint enhancement, although Lin Xin could not bear their full strength due to his body, he still managed to raise his cultivation to the terrifying level of the 7th rank of the 9th rank. The power of the Holy Sun domain and the Holy Sun spell was naturally greatly amplified, resulting in the terrifying scene just now. The 18 eternal heroes, the 12 holy guards, the 9 members of the Light of Dawn monster hunters, and the Light Elf King Yiting. Long Houchen's overall strength was at least double that of a Bao's. Under such circumstances, how could a Bao and his vanguard have any chance? The reason why only the members of the Light of Dawn monster hunters appeared on the battlefield was to show the enemy that they were weaker than they were. If it was a head-on collision, the enemy would run away when they saw that they were not strong enough. With the strength of the Black Dragon Guards, it would not be a problem for at least half of them to run away. Long Houchen's goal was to wipe them all out. Every Black Dragon Guard killed was equivalent to weakening the strength of the heaven-defying Demon Dragon clan by 1%. How could Long Houchen let such a good opportunity slip by? Naturally, it was not only these 3 directions that attacked. Battles broke out in every direction that the Black Dragon Guards were pursuing, and all of them ended in overwhelming fashion. The failure of the vanguard could not be blamed entirely on a Bao and Huang Shuo. How could they have imagined that Long Houchen was in control of such a huge force? According to the demon's estimation of the humans, the total number of Stage 9 powerhouses of the human race did not exceed 200, and they had to defend the 6 temples. The main force of Long Houchen's raid this time was the Light of Dawn monster hunters. At most, there would be a few more Stage 9 powerhouses of the Knights Templars. However, the Knights Templars still had to defend themselves, and the army could not retreat without a commander. Therefore, Huang Shuo thought that even if Long Haochen had an ambush, it would not be a big threat to the Black Dragon Guards. At the very least, they would have no problem retreating. It had been 6,000 years since the establishment of the Black Dragon Guard. They were almost invincible on the Holy Demon Continent, so Huang Shuo had been a little careless. How could he know that Long Haochen had brought almost the strongest force of the human race this time? Even the Light of Dawn monster hunters themselves were not something that they could take down. The 12 Holy Guards and the members of the Light of Dawn monster hunters were not at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. If Long Haochen went all out, he would definitely be able to defeat this vanguard of the demons. Moreover, among the forces that Long Haochen had brought this time, the most terrifying ones were the Eternal Heroes who had been asleep for thousands of years. Among the 18 Eternal Heroes, 2 were at level 7 of the 9th Order, and the rest were all at level 5 of the 9th Order and above. Each of them had a tyrannical cultivation base. Such a force had the terrifying power to reverse the situation on any battlefield. During the First Holy War, the Demon Emperor had a premonition that there was a powerful force hidden in the human race that had never been used. Even someone at the level of the Demon Emperor felt apprehensive, which showed how terrifying the overall strength of the Eternal Heroes was. Regardless of whether it was Xiao Huo or Xu Yongxiao, they were both old but firm, powerful and wise. In the previous battles, they had spent most of their time hiding behind the members of the Bright Glimmer of Light Demon Hunt Squad. Therefore, even if there was news from the front lines, it would be very difficult for the demons to know that there was actually such a powerful hidden force on the battlefield. At this time, the real prelude to the decisive battle had arrived, and it was the first time in history that the heaven-defying Demon Dragon clan had suffered such a big loss. One-on-one, the Eternal Heroes could easily defeat the Black Dragon Guards with their tyrannical cultivation base, not to mention that they were hidden at the side and lying in ambush. Coupled with the strength of the members of the Light of Dawn, they had an overwhelming advantage. How could they lose? Abao and Long Haochen faced each other, the heavy swords of both sides still clashing with each other. Long Haochen stared coldly at Abao. He was not anxious at all. The stronger Abao's burst of power, the stronger his resistance. In the process of the confrontation between the heaven-defying demon divine territory and the eternal territory, distorted light was constantly produced, so much so that even Huang Shuo, who was far away, could not see the situation clearly. Abao clenched his teeth, and his body gradually emitted a layer of blood qi. Long Haochen was actually so powerful. He had already used all his strength. The heavenly purple dragon sword in his hand constantly burst out terrifying dark lightning, and under the enhancement of the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar, it frantically attacked Long Haochen's defense. However, Long Haochen did not move. No matter how much he increased his cultivation base, he still could not defeat his opponent. What level had Long Haochen's cultivation reached? Was it the enhancement of the eternal and creator throne of God? No matter what, I can't lose. The obsession in his heart made Abao more ferocious. He fiercely bit the tip of his tongue, and a mouthful of dark purple blood sprayed on the heavenly purple dragon sword in his hand. Suddenly, the purple-red light sword, and the pressure on Long Haochen increased sharply. The purple dragon heaven-shocking sword was slowly pressing down, and the heaven-defying demon realm behind Abao also began to gradually condense. The huge heaven-defying demon god pillar seemed to be falling down, and the pressure on the eternal domain gradually shrank. I must win, no matter what price I have to pay. This was the only thought in Abao's heart. Advantage, I finally have the advantage. Feeling the eternal sword being pushed back bit by bit, Abao was overjoyed. He subconsciously looked at Long Haochen. What he wanted to see the most was a look of panic and despair on Long Haochen's face. However, he was disappointed. What he saw was a pair of calm golden eyes, so calm that it was scary. It seemed that nothing in the world could shake this calmness. "It's about time." Long Houchen's inexplicable words made Abao's heart clench. At this moment, he heard a strange sound. Thump, thump. A strong heartbeat suddenly sounded in Abao's ears. Before he could understand what was going on, a completely unstoppable force suddenly burst out from Long Houchen's eternal sword. Then, his body was sent flying, and only stopped when he hit the heaven-defying demon-dragon pillar. Long Houchen was still floating there. The battle between the eternal realm and the heaven-defying demon realm had returned to its previous state of balance. However, Abao's heart completely sank. No matter how unwilling he was to admit it, he knew that he was no match for Long Houchen. Even though he had used all his strength to hurt his origin, he was still sent flying by Long Houchen. Although his body was not seriously injured, the blow to his mind was unparalleled. Looking at the calm Long Houchen, Abao's emotions were extremely complicated. He roared fiercely, raised the purple dragon's shocking sky sword above his head, and spat out a mouthful of purplish-red blood. "Crown Prince, you can't." In the distance, Huang Shuo finally saw what happened when the two sides separated. His expression changed. Just as he was about to rush over to stop Abao from fighting Long Houchen, the black figure that had been quiet for a long time appeared silently again. At the same time, a golden figure appeared, one in front and one behind. Chapter 287. The pitch-black silent extermination was just a light touch, calm and silent, while the gold in front of him instantly turned into a giant eye, blooming with countless golden lights. At this moment, Huang Shuo finally realized what kind of opponent he was facing. In that instant, 8 words appeared in his mind. Space Walker, rank 7 level 9. If assassins had a special way to hide in the dark and travel through space to a certain extent, then the knight could also do it without being discovered. There was only one explanation for this. Despair instantly spread in his heart. Huang Shuo let out a wild roar and launched the last attack of his life, an attack that would destroy both good and bad alike. Abao couldn't see what Huang Shuo was doing, nor could he hear his voice. After the mouthful of purplish-red blood was spat out, it was different from the instant it merged into the domain. Instead, it turned into a purplish-red symbol in the air. That symbol was slightly distorted, like an earthworm that had folded a few times. There were even a few strange tips on it. The purplish-red symbol instantly returned and landed lightly on Abao's forehead. Instantly, Abao's forehead lit up. The purplish-red color turned into a bright and transparent gemstone luster. Countless light ridges shot out from his forehead. The heaven-defying demonic dragon pillar behind him also became much clearer in an instant. Seeing this scene, Long Houchen's expression changed. He had fought against the demon god many times, so of course he could feel what Abao had done. This was the demon god's last resort. "You actually used the sky demon disintegration technique?" Abao looked at Long Houchen coldly. His aura grew crazily. The terrifying coercion caused lightning to appear around his body again, immediately tearing cracks in the space. The terrifying power caused his entire body to distort and deform. His bulging muscles and thick blood vessels began to push up the armor under the urging of the sky demon disintegration technique. Long Houchen didn't expect Abao's obsession to be so strong. Normally, the demon god wouldn't use the sky demon disintegration technique unless he was at the end of his rope. After using this secret technique, even if he didn't die, his cultivation would be greatly reduced, and his origin would be damaged. Although Abao was the inheritor of the heaven-defying demonic dragon emperor's bloodline, he might be able to recover in the future. However, after using the sky demon disintegration technique, he wouldn't be able to recover to his current level for at least the next 10 years. There was only one reason why he used such a secret technique, and that was to raise his strength to the peak and kill Long Houchen. A hint of coldness appeared in the depths of Long Houchen's eyes. He also raised the eternal sword above his head, and a white radiance shone on top of his head. Long Houchen's aura also increased at an alarming rate. At the same time, the powerful heartbeat that had appeared previously could be heard again. Thump thump, thump thump, thump thump. A ball of aquamarine light constantly burst out from Long Houchen's chest. After the aquamarine light was reflected by the eternal stone on Long Houchen's chest, it looked even more magnificent. Every time his heart beat, his cultivation seemed to skyrocket. The speed at which his aura increased was actually not much different from when Abao used the Sky Demon disintegration technique. Abao's eyes were very cold. He didn't seem to notice the improvement of Long Houchen's cultivation. What he saw was the look on Yu Ye's face when she broke off the engagement. What he saw was the look on Long Houchen's face every time he defeated him. At this moment, Abao had completely forgotten all his responsibilities as the crown prince of the demons. In his heart, the only obsession in his heart was to defeat the opponent in front of him and tear him into pieces. The sky-shocking purple dragon sword gradually turned bluish-purple. The terrifying thunder and lightning sword light gradually materialized, turning into thunder and lightning symbols that condensed on the sword. As the aura of both sides soared crazily, their domains also began to violently collide, pushing each other further and further away. The calmness in Long Houchen's eyes formed a sharp contrast with the hysteria in Abao's eyes. Both of them knew that the next collision would be earth-shattering, and the winner would be decided. Huang Shua's corpse quietly floated in midair, carried by Xiaohua. After dying, the heaven-defying demon dragon would return to its original appearance. Huang Shua's body turned into the heaven-defying demon dragon was nearly 50 meters long. Unfortunately, he no longer had any powerful aura. It was a joke to want to die together with two rank 7 Ninth Order experts who had existed for 6,000 years and had countless experiences. With the strength of Xiaohua and Xu Yongxiao, the two Temple League's first Temple Masters, how could they give him that chance? The reason why Xiaohua hadn't made a move and why Xu Yongxiao had only been fighting was because Xiaohua didn't want Po and Huang Shua to discover the battles happening in the other 9 directions. Xiaohua's move meant that the battles in the other 9 directions had ended. The eternal heroes still did not appear. However, in a different direction in the distance, the Light of Dawn monster hunters were rushing back and happened to see the confrontation between Long Houchen and Abao. The eternal sword swayed slightly in the air, and the emerald light slowly fell on the tip of the sword. Immediately, the emerald light flowed down from the top and completely dyed the eternal sword green. At the same time, the eternal god stone on Long Houchen's chest burst out with an emerald light. In an instant, the eternal armor turned the same color. Even the eternal domain was affected by the change of the eternal armor, turning from its previous white to emerald green. A thick aura of life spread out, and even Abao felt a little comfortable. At this time, Long Houchen no longer looked like a human. Instead, he looked more like a god of nature that had descended from the sky. The thick aura of nature was even comparable to that of the fantasy paradise. "Take my sword!" Long Houchen shouted in a deep voice. Countless emerald lights instantly surged in the air, and the eternal domain turned into a huge emerald vortex. The tip of the vortex moved forward and stabbed straight at Abao. One of the 3 eternal swords, revival of all things. However, this sword was already quite different from the original revival of all things. This was because this sword, which was filled with the aura of life and nature, had a portion of the power that belonged to the goddess of nature, the power of the spiritual stove of wisdom. Almost at the same time that Long Houchen made his move, Abao also moved. His movement was even simpler and more direct. Purple Emperor Heaven's shocking slash. The huge purple light was like a waterfall, and the terrifying purplish-red color extended in the air. It didn't look like spiritual power at all, but like an extension of power that was completely carved out of precious stones. The moment the purple Emperor Heaven's shocking slash came into contact with the revival of all things, it immediately moved forward with irresistible force. The emerald vortex was split into two, and one flew past Bao by 100 meters, while the other with a bright purplish-red color went straight for Long Houchen's body. At this moment, even Xiaohua and Xu Yongxiao couldn't help but feel nervous. At this moment, even with their cultivation, they couldn't participate in this battle at all. Everything depended on Long Houchen. The members of the Light of Dawn monster hunters in the distance couldn't help but exclaim. At least from the looks of it, Long Houchen had completely fallen into a disadvantageous position. Long Houchen floated in the air, unmoving. The eternal sword in his hand had already disappeared. He watched as the purplish-red blade swept past his body. "No!" Kair shouted in despair, but her voice stopped abruptly. This was because Long Houchen, who was in the air, had turned into a wisp of green smoke and disappeared. At this moment, everyone realized that although Bao's purple Emperor Heaven's shocking slash had slashed Long Houchen's revival of all things in half, the huge emerald green color had also completely integrated into his heaven-defying demon celestial territory. The gentle green color instantly condensed, and in the next moment, the sky suddenly lit up. The heaven-defying demon celestial territory had actually been suppressed and disappeared. Even the image of the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar was entangled by a thick aura of life. Countless emerald lights erupted in the next moment. In the sky, a strange illusion full of vitality began to appear. It was as if there were countless plants growing in the sky, reviving and bearing fruit. All the negative emotions were also swept away with this thick vitality. The ones who felt it the most were Long Houchen's companions. Everyone from the Light of Dawn monster hunters felt as if they had returned to a dreamy paradise. Everything around them had turned into a vibrant emerald green color. Xiaohua and Xu Yongxiao looked at each other. They could feel an intense shock from each other's soul fire. So, this was Long Houchen's true power. In that instant, the power of the revival of all living things had probably reached the level of level 9 or 8. Even though he had borrowed the power of the divine throne with the divine seal of eternity and creation, this transcendental artifact was a part of his body. Moreover, even a transcendental artifact would not be able to increase his power by so much. Long Houchen's own spiritual stove of wisdom had played a key role. As the revival of all things and Yi Xiaolei's power fused, the image of the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar in the sky gradually became illusory and shattered. When Long Houchen reappeared in everyone's sight, Yi Xiaolei's figure, which had been magnified many times, appeared behind him. At this moment, Yi Xiaolei's eyes were hazy with tears. She seemed to see her home again, but at the same time, she recalled the scene of her home being destroyed. Bao was the son of the Demon Emperor. He had an aura that was extremely similar to the Demon Emperor. How could she not do her best to help Long Houchen launch the final attack? The green light gradually faded, and the dense presence of life returned to Long Houchen's body like rivers flowing into the sea. In the end, it vanished from where the divine stone of eternity was. Yi Xiaolei's figure faded away as well. Bao was right in front of Long Houchen. However, his body no longer had the 1/3 degree of demon god transformation brought by the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar. Even the dragon armor on his body was broken in many places. Terrifying scars flickered with faint emerald green light all over his body. Bao's eyes were very dim, without any luster. He was still holding the purple dragon heaven's shocking sword in his hand, but it was less than 1/3 of its original length. He was defeated. Even if his strength was enhanced under the state of the demon disintegration, he still lost to Long Houchen. He was defeated by the revival of all things. The damage to his body was far less than the pain in his heart. "Kill me, kill me!" Bao suddenly shouted at Long Houchen. He didn't understand why Long Houchen didn't kill him. Long Houchen could have killed him just now. Did he want to keep him alive to humiliate him? Along with his roar, all the wounds on his body burst open. Abao's body was completely dyed purple by his own purple blood. However, the self-healing ability of the heaven-defying demon dragon royalty was indeed strong. The bleeding stopped after a few seconds. However, the internal injuries on Abao's body were not so easy to heal. The backlash of the demon disintegration was crazily devouring his origin. Long Houchen looked coldly at Abao. He knew that from this moment on, this demon's crown prince could no longer pose a threat to him. He naturally had his reasons for keeping Abao alive. Last time in the Star Demon Tower, the Demon Emperor didn't kill my partner. I'll return this favor to him now. When you go back, tell the Demon Emperor that I'll be waiting for his arrival. The 6,000 years of the Dark Age is about to end. As he spoke, Long Houchen waved his hand. A huge force suddenly hit Abao's body and pushed him far away. Looking at Abao's disappearing figure, Long Houchen's heart gradually calmed down. He didn't win this battle easily. When he sent Abao flying, a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Abao's final attack also injured him. However, Long Houchen also successfully hid some of his more powerful strength. He was facing the demon's crown prince, and not the demon emperor. He would rather be injured than reveal all his trump cards, especially when he had no intention of killing Abao. 5 years ago, in the Star Demon Tower, although Long Houchen didn't understand why the demon emperor didn't kill his partners, at that time, the demon emperor had indeed let them go. If the demon emperor had killed everyone at that time, it would be even more impossible for him to be resurrected. He could only meet his partners underground. No matter what the demon emperor's reason for doing so, today Long Houchen didn't kill Abao, so he returned the favor. Letting Abao bring the message was also to tell the demon emperor that if they met again, it would be a battle of life and death. What Long Houchen didn't know was that Abao had the seal of the heaven-defying demon dragon imperial family. If he really wanted to kill Abao, then the scene that appeared in Fantasy Paradise would play out again. Gazing into the distance, the flames in Long Houchen's heart gradually weakened. Kyra had come to his side at some point. She hit his shoulder hard, then threw herself into his arms and hugged him tightly. Chapter 288. The Holy War was inevitable, and the war between humans and demons had just begun. After a simple sweep of the battlefield, Long Houchen quietly disappeared with his companions at the end of the sky. Including the Black Dragon Guard commander Huang Shuo, a total of 20 Black Dragon Guards perished in the previous battle. Long Houchen did not delay for even a moment. He quickly took his companions back to the dragon-resisting mountain pass. At the same time, he let Kai Er, who was the fastest, immediately catch up with the Vanguard Corps in front, ordering them to speed up and rush back to the dragon-resisting mountain pass. Although the demon's vanguard was destroyed, Long Houchen's mood was not relaxed at all. This was just the beginning. Yu Ye's information was confirmed to be correct, but it also confirmed the accuracy of her other information. The Demon Emperor was leading nearly 200 rank 9 demons to besiege and kill him. He could only choose to retreat now, quickly return to the dragon-resisting mountain pass, and defend it with the strength of the impregnable pass. To completely defeat the demons was not something that could be done in a single battle. What Long Houchen needed was to wait and persevere. When the Demon Emperor saw Abao, his face was so ugly that it almost dripped blood. Abao's appearance was really too embarrassing. He did not even fly in the sky, but walked on the ground in a daze. At this time, he was like an ordinary human, staggering. The Demon Emperor felt it the moment when Abao was defeated by Long Houchen. However, the seal on Abao's body was not opened, so he thought that Long Houchen and Abao were mutually wounded, because he could not think of any reason for Long Houchen not to kill Abao. But when he saw his son walking alone in the wilderness, the Demon Emperor realized that he was wrong. He knew Abao too well. If Abao and Long Houchen were mutually wounded, he would definitely not have this expression. He would definitely try his best to heal himself and quickly bring the news to him. But now, he was completely like a walking corpse. On Abao's face, there was no longer the domineering and confident expression from before. His dull eyes and slow steps made him look like a puppet. "Pa!" The demon emperor slapped Abao and sent him flying. If it were not for the moon demon Agars who hurriedly caught him, his right hand would have slashed down. Abao was sent flying tens of meters away by this slap, slamming hard on the ground. He spat out mouthfuls of purple blood and blood clots and directly fell into a coma. The demon emperor was also shocked. He naturally knew when to stop. Abao was his successor, his biological son. The seemingly forceful slap was actually more of a physical force, but Abao's situation was clearly not that simple. Without needing the moon demon Agars to persuade him, the demon emperor's figure flashed and appeared beside Abao. He waved his right hand at Abao, and Abao's body slowly floated in front of the demon emperor. A layer of dark purple light enveloped the father and son. After a moment, the dark purple light dissipated. Agars clearly saw that the dark golden light in the demon emperor's eyes flickered 3 times in an instant. He understood that this was a sign that the demon emperor's anger had reached its peak. For a moment, whether it was the moon demon, star demon, or the other 20 demon gods, they all kept quiet out of fear. They did not even dare to breathe loudly. The demon emperor looked at Agars and said in a deep voice, "Abao is crippled." "What?" Although Agars had already guessed that Abao's situation was not good, when the word crippled came out of Feng Xiu's mouth, he was still extremely shocked. Abao was the demon emperor's only heir. Ever since Abao's cultivation had broken through to the 9th rank, the demon emperor had already begun paving the way for his succession. How could he be crippled just like that? It wasn't just Agars. All the demon gods turned pale with fright. The crown prince had left with 20 black dragon guards. Now, he was the only one left, and he had been crippled. Where were the black dragon guards? Could the strongest of the demons not even be able to protect their crown prince? Moreover, Abao's strength was not weak, but he could not escape unscathed. How could this be? His Highness the Crown Prince is connected to you by blood. When necessary, he can borrow your strength, Agars said in confusion. Demon Emperor Feng Xiu said coldly, "He sealed the aura connection between me and him. After using the demon disintegration technique, he was still seriously injured. Even if I personally heal him, he will not be able to recover to his previous state for at least 20 years. He will never be able to cultivate to my level in his lifetime, Asmodeus." "Your Majesty." Among the 72 demon gods of the demons, Dragon Rider demon god Asmodeus, ranked 32nd, quickly stepped forward and responded respectfully. At that time, he had once made Yang Wenzhao and Duan Yi suffer a huge loss, and even annihilated their respective demon hunt squads. It was Long Haochen who rescued the two from his hands, but it was also from then on that he began to fall into the trap of the demon god emperor and the star demon god. "Bring him back to Heart City, then bring Ling Xiao to see me." As he spoke, the demon emperor handed Feng Xiu to Asmodeus. The dark golden light in his eyes flashed again. Asmodeus carefully took over Abao. All the demon gods present were silent. They understood the meaning of the demon emperor's words. This was the end of the possibility of Abao inheriting the throne. The demon emperor only had one son and one daughter. If he brought Ling Xiao here, wouldn't it mean that he wanted her to replace Abao as the next demon emperor's heir? Indeed, even if Ling Xiao's talent was not as good as Abao's, 20 years was enough for her to leave Abao far behind. Moreover, the demon emperor's anger was not only because of her strength. "Father!" Just as Asmodeus was about to turn and leave, Abao slowly woke up from his coma. After the demon emperor's treatment, his injuries had barely stabilized. At least, there was no threat to his life. Feng Xiu looked at her son coldly and said, "You disappoint me too much." Abao's mouth revealed a trace of bitterness. Father, I lost. I lost to Long Houchen. Even if I used the demon disintegration technique and the power of the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar, I still couldn't defeat him. The demon emperor's heart stirred. Tell me the whole story. Also, where are Huang Shuo and the others? Abao's eyes were hollow. I don't know where Huang Shuo and the others went. At that time, I only had eyes for Long Houchen. My opponent was also Long Houchen. I released the power of the heaven-defying demon dragon pillar. In the end, Long Houchen asked me to tell you that he was waiting for your arrival. The 6,000 years of the Dark Age is about to end. He also said that he didn't kill me because he owed you a favor for not killing his companions in the Star Demon Tower. The Demon Emperor slowly took a deep breath. The dark gold color in his eyes slowly disappeared. In the depths of his eyes, there was an extremely special fluctuation of emotions, complicated and struggling. Agars had been silently observing the Demon Emperor. The other demon gods didn't dare to disturb him. After a long while, the Demon Emperor waved at the dragon rider demon god Asmodeus. Asmodeus understood and carried Abao away. He really didn't want to stay in front of the Demon Emperor for too long. The pressure was too great. What a pity. The Demon Emperor didn't get angry. Instead, he let out a sigh. Your Majesty, are you feeling pity for Abao? His Highness the Crown Prince still has a chance to recover. After this war is over, I am willing to do my best to assist your Majesty in treating the Crown Prince. The Moon Demon Agar said. The Demon Emperor shook his head and said, I'm not feeling pity for him. Abao's personality is stubborn. His lack of vision of the overall situation has always been his fatal weakness. I wanted to influence him subtly, but he still couldn't get out of his own nightmare. That's why he lost today. He no longer has the qualifications to become the future Lord of Demons. What I'm feeling pity for is that the conflict between me and Long Houchen is completely irreconcilable. Otherwise, at this point, the Demon Emperor paused. Agar's body suddenly trembled. He thought of a possibility because he suddenly remembered what the Demon Emperor had said in the Star Demon Tower. The Demon Emperor waved his hand and said, Let's go. I want to see how this Long Houchen will end the Dark Age. As he said that, he stepped out of the void and landed back in his dragon carriage. The ones responsible for carrying the dragon carriage were the 32 black dragon guards. More than 1,000 figures set off again. Without the Demon Emperor's orders, their speed increased sharply and they went straight north. The Moon Demon Agars was worthy of being the second-ranked demon god. In the process of advancing, he had sent several moon devils to the capital of the 6 northern provinces to control the situation. It seemed like he was taking power, but everything was given in front of the Demon Emperor, so he appeared to be open and aboveboard. The Demon Emperor seemed to be completely unaware of all this. He just sat quietly in the dragon carriage, seemingly thinking about something. Temple Federation, Southeast Fortress, Operations Department. Qiu Yonghao sat at the head of the table. Although he had passed the position of Warrior Temple Master to Wang Yuan, he was still the one in charge of the Warrior Temple at the moment. On the left side sat the 9 Eternal Heroes, and on the right side sat the powerhouses of the Warrior Temple. From the way these powerhouses of the Warrior Temple looked at each other, it could be seen that they were extremely respectful to the 9 Eternal Heroes. The reason was very simple. These 9 Eternal Heroes were all warriors, and the inheritors they had chosen were also in this southeast fortress. They were the children of the Warrior Temple's higher-ups. Moreover, among these 9 warriors, the highest cultivation base was rank 9 level 4, and the lowest was rank 9 level 3. Any one of them was an absolute powerhouse in the Warrior Temple. Through this period of contact, the upper echelons of the Warrior Temple, from Qiu Yonghao down, could be said to be full of admiration for these 9 Eternal Heroes. These 9 experts of the previous generation had never revealed their identities to them, nor had they participated in any major decisions. They had always obeyed Qiu Yonghao's commands. At the same time, when they were teaching their successors, they were not stingy in passing on their own cultivation and combat experiences to other outstanding young disciples of the warrior temple. They were not stingy at all, only passing on some of their unique techniques to their successors. It was foreseeable that with the teachings of these 9 ancestors, the growth of the younger generation of the warrior temple would definitely be much stronger than that of Qiu Yonghao's generation. These 9 eternal heroes had received the highest respect from all the higher-up. The demon god of necromancy, Samakina, has led 16 demon gods and commanded an elite army of 500,000 demons. They are approaching us day and night. According to intelligence, they will arrive at the southeast fortress in about 3 days. Today, I've invited all of you here to discuss the specific countermeasures. Qiu Yonghao's words made the atmosphere in the Department of War tense up. Although they had long guessed that as the fortress closest to Demonic City, the Demon Emperor would probably make them a priority target, the arrival of the demon army still made the higher-ups of the warrior temple very nervous. After all, in the past, the southeast fortress where the warrior temple was located had received the most attack. At the same time, it was also the weakest of the 6 major fortresses. This time, the demon army had come in a menacing manner. There were as many as 16 demon god. One could imagine how much pressure the warrior temple was under. Is the information accurate, Lord Qiu? Among the 9 eternal heroes, the old man sitting at the head of the table asked in a deep voice. Qiu Yonghao nodded and said, "The information is very accurate. It was sent by the chairman. At the same time, according to the signs of the intelligence we've received, we've verified it with each other. The reliability of the information is very high. Senior Yi, do you have any suggestions?" The old man with a cultivation base of level 4 was Yi Sanmi. He shook his head slightly and said, "We're only responsible for fighting. You can decide the strategy and tactic. However, I'd like to remind you that the current warrior temple is a mix of the 6 major professions. It's different from before. There should be some changes in the strategy and tactic." "Yes," Qiu Yonghao replied respectfully. He was not afraid of the undead demon god Samakina now. Now in the southeast fortress, there were more than 100,000 of the 6 major professions and nearly 500,000 troops. In terms of numbers, they were not inferior to the demons at all. Even if the demons were an extremely elite army, the southeast fortress had received favorable policies from the Federation after the last Holy War. The defense was built to be stronger than before. There were also 9 eternal heroes in charge. It was impossible to fight the demons head-on the plains, but Qiu Yonghao had great confidence in defending the southeast fortress. A series of orders were quickly arranged. According to Long Haochen's overall strategic arrangement, if the southeast fortress was attacked by the demon army, there was only one goal, and that was to defend. That was to delay the demon army here and minimize their own losses as much as possible. That was enough. The same strategic arrangement also appeared in the Wansho Pass where the Soul Temple was located. The Wansho Pass did not receive much military support, but the Jiaoling Pass where the Magic Temple was located had always been the most difficult to break through among the 6 major fortresses. In addition, after the profession changed this time, the Wansho Pass also had all 6 major professions. Chen Hongba also had the support of 9 eternal heroes. He was absolutely confident. Not only did he want to defend, but he also wanted to counterattack. With the constant mobilization of the armies of the humans and demons, the atmosphere of the entire Holy Demon continent was getting more and more tense. However, the first battle to break out was not the collision between the 2 armies, but the top forces of the thousands of demons commanded by the Demon Emperor. Relying on their powerful strength, they crossed almost half of the demons' territory and arrived outside the dragon-resisting pass. The demon army commanded by the necromancer demon god and the infernal demon god had not yet reached their respective fortresses. The dragon-resisting pass was already in sight. The moon demon Agars came to the side of the demon emperor's dragon carriage and asked in a low voice, "Your Majesty, should we attack immediately or," the demon emperor said indifferently, "there is no hurry. Didn't that Long Houchen deliberately lure me here? Alright, I will see him first. Let's find a flat place to set up camp here." "Yes," Agars said and quickly conveyed the demon emperor's order. Although the moon demon Agars was the second demon god, he was now like the chief steward of the entire army. The will of the demon emperor was completely fulfilled by him. This place was still 50 li away from the dragon resisting pass. In the biting cold wind, exquisite tents made of cowhide were quickly set up in the wilderness. Strength was good, even the speed at which the tents were set up was very fast. If it was in an ordinary army, a seventh-step powerhouse would already have a very high status. However, in this army, an eighth-step powerhouse could only do odd jobs. Among the thousands of demons, there was no seventh-step powerhouse at all. The lowest cultivation base was at the eighth step. Over 1,000 eighth-step demons. What kind of terrifying strength was this? Even the 6 major human temples combined might not be able to gather such a number. An eighth-step powerhouse could only share a tent with 2 people. Only a ninth-step powerhouse had the qualifications to have a tent alone. As for the demon gods' tents, they were all dark gold in color. The largest naturally belonged to the demon emperor. Making the tent look like a palace, this was the best way to describe the demon emperor's tent. Over 1,000 demons, in this windy and snowy northern region, when night fell, they were really not obvious. However, when all the tents were set up and the demons moved in, the dragon resisting pass was the first to notice them. It was impossible not to notice them, because they were really too eye-catching. 19 light pillars instantly lit up. Each light pillar had a different color and size, but even the shortest light pillar was 100 meters high, and the tallest purple light pillar was nearly 1,000 meters high. These were the demon god pillars of the moon demon god Agars and the other 19 demon gods that came with the demon god emperor. When these 19 demon god pillars appeared, their radiance blossomed in the wilderness, causing the entire dragon-resisting mountain pass to shake. Except for the eternal heroes, all the powerhouses in the dragon-resisting pass had never seen such a magnificent scene. The 19 demon god pillars represented the arrival of 19 demon gods outside the dragon-resisting mountain pass. More importantly, these 19 demon god pillars were arranged in a circle, and in the middle of them, a dark golden light was faintly discernible, connecting the heavens and the earth, just like a heavenly pillar that supported the heavens. Although it was not clear, the majesty it exuded was something that the 19 demon god pillars combined could not compare to. Not to mention others, even the Temple Federation chairman, the Light of Dawn Monster Hunters leader Long Houchen, was deeply shocked when he saw this scene outside the dragon-resisting pass. Knowing was one thing, but seeing it with his own eyes was another matter. Although he looked calm on the surface, in his heart, he still felt like he was suppressing something. The demon emperor, the invincible existence of the holy demon continent, had finally arrived, and he would finally confront this terrifying existence. The high-level Knights Templars of the dragon-resisting pass were all solemn at this time, and even the eternal heroes were no exception. The news of Long Houchen leading the Dagger Corps and returning victorious from the demons immediately spread to the dragon-resisting pass, and it was fully publicized to the entire Federation. As the Federation chairman, Long Houchen's prestige skyrocketed, and coupled with the previous propaganda of the magic video, Long Houchen's influence was many times stronger than when he first became the Federation chairman. The humans and the demons had been fighting for 6,000 years, and they had never had such a great victory. But at this moment, looking at the 20 demon god pillars in the distance, the joy of the previous victory was swept away. A stage victory and the final victory were never the same thing. As long as the demon emperor was still there, and he was still that invincible existence, then for the humans, there was almost no way to turn the tables. On the surface, it seemed that the Demon Emperor had brought 200 Ninth Order powerhouses, and more than 1,000 Eighth Order powerhouses, but in reality, the biggest threat and deterrent to the dragon-resisting pass was only the Demon Emperor himself. The power accumulated for thousands of years was not something that could be fully confident just by mustering up the courage. The atmosphere in the dragon-resisting pass was frighteningly heavy. Long Hao Chun. A low and deep voice sounded, and the sound waves rumbled. The terrifying aura seemed to have caused the entire dragon-resisting pass to tremble slightly. Seeing that the Demon Emperor and the demons had set up camp in the distance, the high-level Knights Templars originally thought that he would not attack immediately, but at this time, when the voice reached them, everyone was subconsciously shocked, and their eyes all focused on Long Houchen. Separated by 50 miles, the Demon Emperor's voice seemed to be right in front of them. Long Houchen's eyes slightly narrowed, and a profound light shone in the depths of his eyes. His toes touched the ground, and his body floated up, the 6 golden wings on his back stretched out, and suddenly Yulong Pass was illuminated in a shining gold. Demon, God, Emperor. Long Houchen's voice was very calm, without the slightest fluctuation of emotion, and similarly spread far away. As he spoke, his body slowly flew higher into the sky, and at the same time, an intense lustrous white beam of light descended from the sky, falling behind Long Houchen. The sky suddenly became as bright as daytime, and the lustrous white light instantly spread out, forcibly dispelling the darkness of the night. At least the dragon-resisting pass was completely covered by this pure aura, and also calmed the fear in people's hearts. In the center of the lustrous white light, a 9-colored halo began to spread out. The 9 colors were so dazzling, sacred, and noble, and even more so had a kind of high and mighty majesty. In the center of this 9-colored light, a huge throne of God more than 100 feet high appeared in midair. The 9-colored light had a special aura, and the 9 colors were shining, but there was not the slightest hint of chaos. Vaguely, behind the throne of God, the 9 colors gradually formed a circle of light, and the body of the throne gradually turned into the color of a white jade sculpture. On the back of the throne, there were tiny reliefs everywhere, giving people a kind of indescribable beauty. At the top there were the sun, moon, and stars, and in the middle there were birds and beasts, and connected to the throne there were scenes of nature. On the armrests of the throne, there was a statue of a sacred dragon and a 12-winged angel. Bathed in the light of the throne, the experts of the dragon-resisting pass felt the fear in their hearts disappear, and could no longer feel the pressure brought by the 20 demon god pillars in the distance. Long Houchen's body was still standing there, but with his body as the center, a huge humanoid light projection was projected in front of the eternal and creative throne of God. This figure was more than 150 feet high, and it was Long Houchen himself. Although it was only a light projection, but the moment his huge body slowly sat on the eternal and creative throne of God, in the dragon-resisting pass, regardless of profession, everyone used their most noble etiquette to pay respect to Long Houchen in the sky. Fanaticism had already replaced the fear in their hearts. The demons have the invincible Demon Emperor, but we humans also have our leader and glorious Knight of the Seal, the Federation President Long Houchen. Long Houchen's action of releasing the eternal and creative throne of God restored the morale of the people of the dragon-resisting pass, and it was also increasing at an astonishing speed. As if stimulated by the aura of the eternal and creative throne of God, in the distance, the Demon Emperor's heaven-defying demon dragon suddenly emitted a dark golden light. Under the illumination of the dark golden light, the Demon Emperor's body slowly grew, growing until it was the same size as Long Houchen, and then stopped. A huge dark golden dragon emerged behind him, turning into a dragon throne that looked even bigger than the eternal and creative throne of God, bearing the body of the Demon Emperor. The speed of your growth surprised me. Not dying in the battle 5 years ago was my biggest mistake. Although separated by dozens of miles, The demon emperor's voice was still so clear, as if it was right next to his ear. Long Houchen said indifferently, "A mistake is a mistake. I heard that the star demon Vasak once prophesied that it was your only chance to deal with me. That time, it didn't succeed, which means that the demons will inevitably go to decline, am I right?" The demon emperor's face changed, his reply also slightly paused. The great prophecy of the star demon Vasak is the demon's top secret. How did Long Houchen know about it? Even among the demons, only a few high-level demon gods have heard of it. With just you. Feng Xiu sneered. He didn't refute Long Houchen's words. As the demon emperor, he had never been one to lie, but for some reason, after hearing this reminder from Long Houchen, he felt a faint sense of unease in his heart. That's right, didn't Vasak say that it was their only chance to deal with Long Houchen? If they missed that chance, Long Houchen would definitely become a threat to the survival of the demons. With just me. Long Houchen gave an affirmative answer to the demon emperor. He obviously couldn't show any weakness now. Feng Xiu suddenly smiled and said, "Very good, you are indeed the young man I fancy. Whether it is my race or you humans, in your generation, there is indeed no one who can surpass your talent and luck. The current you has indeed become a force to be reckoned with." The demon emperor was also praising Long Houchen? Although they were enemies, when the human powerhouses of the dragon-resisting mountain pass heard his words, they couldn't help but feel proud. That was the demon god emperor, an invincible existence, the #1 expert of the demon race. Whether or not I have become a force to be reckoned with doesn't need you to judge. Since this holy war is unavoidable, I believe that this will be the battle that will change the fate of humanity. Long Houchen coldly said. The demon god emperor calmly smiled and said, "I'm praising you. What I said is what I'm thinking. You're indeed outstanding, but you're still too young. If I can kill you once, I can kill you a second time." Long Houchen's eyes suddenly widened, 2 cold lights shot out from his eyes. His 150 zhang tall body suddenly seemed extremely sharp, like a drawn bow, ready to burst out with the most powerful attack at any time. "You can try now." While speaking, Long Houchen stood up from the throne of God of eternity and creation. He actually took the initiative to provoke the demon emperor? Not to mention the human experts of the dragon-resisting mountain pass, even the other 19 demon gods in the distance were shocked. This Long Houchen was too arrogant. He actually dared to provoke the demon emperor. But the demon emperor didn't get angry and didn't seem to have any intention to attack. He smiled and said, "You look fierce on the outside but you are weak on the inside. I said you can't do it, so you can't. You being able to defeat about surprised me, but the gap between you and me is still huge. Since I saw you here, you are already in my bag. However, I actually don't want to kill you. Let me ask you a question, is Austin Griffin still alive?" Long Houchen smiled, and his smile carried a trace of disdain. "You're so confident that you can kill me, but are you afraid? Of course Hao Yue is still alive, and he is living very well." The demon emperor also smiled and said, "It seems that you have already told me the answer. Yes, I don't deny that Austin Griffin is a huge threat to us demons. Unfortunately, he is connected to you by the blood contract. If you are already dead, how can he still be alive?" Long Houchen laughed and said, "I am dead? Then who is in front of you?" The demon emperor said coldly, "Just an undead." Long Houchen shook his head gently and said, "Your Majesty Demon Emperor, you are too confident. Many times, things are not what you think they are. You say that I am an undead, but what proof do you have?" The demon emperor laughed and said, "Proof? Of course not, because you are no longer an undead. It's just that you were once an undead." Long Houchen also smiled and said, "Your Majesty's contradictory words are really laughable." The demon emperor shook his head. The demon god emperor shook his head. "No, this isn't ridiculous. I can honestly tell you that no matter if it's me or any other demon god, We are indeed afraid of Austin Griffin. However, your situation has already shown me that he is indeed dead. When I shattered your heart in the Star Demon Tower, you were already dead. If I'm not wrong, the reason you were able to stand in front of me again must be because you had some special treasure on you that could gather your soul and not disperse. Perhaps Austin Griffin wasn't really dead at that time. Later on, you used the secret undead technique to come back to life. However, you were just an undead at that time, not a truly living existence. You could preserve your soul and not disperse, but Austin Griffin couldn't. He could only die. You've now returned to being a human because you snatched the divine puppet of the goddess of nature from my hands and used the power of the goddess of nature to regenerate your heart. However, it has already been 5 years since I killed you. 5 years, Austin Griffin should have long been dead. Listening to the Demon Emperor's meticulous analysis, Long Houchen could not help but be stunned for a moment. Yes, according to what the Demon Emperor said and the rules of the blood contract, if he had survived by relying on the Heart of Eternity, Haoyue should have died, unless he was not an undead creature. But even he himself did not know what kind of existence he should have been before his heart was regenerated, but the magical Heart of Eternity created by Electrolux made him no different from ordinary people, and even his cultivation was not affected at all. For a moment, Long Houchen's heart was filled with doubts. In the eyes of the Demon Emperor, his expression undoubtedly seemed to verify what he said. Since Austin Griffin is dead, then in fact, our biggest disagreement is no longer there. The smile on the Demon God Emperor's face deepened a bit, and he said, although you have part of Austin Griffin's bloodline in your body, following his death, the power of this bloodline will gradually disappear. Since that's the case, I can give you a chance. Long Houchen woke up from his thoughts, and in this brief moment of thinking, he seemed to have grasped something. Was the Austin Griffin that the Demon Emperor was familiar with really the same creature as his Haoyue? No, not entirely. The simplest point was that the reason why Haoyue was able to survive in the Holy Demon Continent when he was still weak was because of the blood contract with Long Houchen. Not only did Long Houchen's blood flow in Haoyue's body, but at the same time, one of his heads that should have been dark had been converted into light attributes. In that case, perhaps everything was different. Long Houchen's guess was completely correct. It was precisely because of the change in attributes that Haoyue was able to survive, gradually recover from his injuries, and later evolve again. Light and darkness were two completely opposite forces. Among Haoyue's 8 heads, Little Light could be said to be the one closest to Long Houchen, because its power was completely derived from Long Houchen. When Electrolux resurrected Long Houchen, he used the Heart of Eternity to preserve all of Long Houchen's human characteristics, so he couldn't be said to be a true undead. At most, he could be said to be in a half-human, half-undead state. The Heart of Eternity, on the other hand, was formed by concentrating a huge amount of light energy from the constitution of the Son of Light. It was the crystallization of the holy law of necromancy, the necromancer calamity Electrolux lifelong research on necromancy. Under the support of the Heart of Eternity, Long Houchen's soul and bloodline were completely restored and even sublimated. No matter how strong the Demon Emperor's cultivation was, he didn't have enough understanding of necromancy. He also didn't know that the one who resurrected Long Houchen was a terrifying existence whose strength was not inferior to his own. Therefore, there was a deviation in his guess. Listening to the Demon Emperor's somewhat gentle voice and his insistence that Haoyue was dead, Long Houchen didn't refute. What he needed most now was time. With each passing day, his cultivation would increase by a considerable degree, and at the same time, his arrangements in the southeast stronghold and Myriad Beasts Pass would be further advanced. Wanting to completely destroy the Demon God Emperor and his terrifying powerhouses outside the dragon-resisting mountain pass was extremely unlikely. His goal was to stall these demon powerhouses here, and the most ideal situation would be to stall them until the battle between the southeastern stronghold and the myriad beast pass was over. At that time, the Eternal Hero Alliance as well as the powerhouses of the 6 sacred temples would be able to rush over to support him, and that would be the final moment to fight the demon god emperor to the death. Chapter 290. His one-on-one policy had earned him the love and respect of the mages, which allowed the mages to quickly integrate into the big family of the Southeast Fortress and get along well with the warriors. On the battlefield, the mages were the sharpest spears, while the warriors around them were their sturdiest shields. Hence, when the lightning spears of the avian demons were hurled towards them, the mages were stunned. The heavy-armored shield warriors immediately formed a turtle shell around the southeastern fortress's walls. The mages who hid behind them and were completely blocked by the tower's shields did not even see the appearance of the lightning spears. The lightning spears were bounced off one by one, and they were directly bounced off the city walls. The lightning spears of the avian demons had a unique characteristic. In the middle of the lightning spears, there were 4 tiny wind-stabilizing wings. This was so that the lightning spears could maintain a forward and downward orientation during the throwing process, so that they would not fall horizontally. Now, these 4 tiny wind-stabilizing wings had become the nightmare of the mad demons. Naturally, the lightning spears that were bounced off by the shield warriors would not be able to distinguish between friend and foe. The mad demons had just annihilated 3 waves of magical beasts and suffered heavy losses when they were greeted by thousands of lightning spears falling from the sky. The lightning spears came too suddenly. The mad demons were in a state of frenzy. By the time they noticed the lightning spears falling from the sky, they would be fine if they could dodge them in time. However, those who did not notice them or were not focused enough would be in trouble. At least 2/3 of the 5,000 lightning spears were bounced off the top of the fortress, and at least 1,000 mad demons were killed or injured by the lightning spears. How tragic! However, the mad demons were mad demons after all. Even though they had suffered heavy losses and lost more than 4,000 soldiers, they still fearlessly charged towards the southeast fortress. When they arrived at the bottom of the fortress, they immediately used the spikes that grew out of their arms to pierce into the wall and rapidly climbed up. Although the walls of the southeastern fortress were solid enough, the mad demons could climb up a little with the help of the spike. The walls that were hundreds of meters high were densely packed with mad demons, and the warlock with the magic eye warlock had finally arrived at this moment. There were more than 13,000 demon eye warlocks, and there was no lack of strong ones among them. Although they were not as fast as the mad demons, they were not that much slower. After all, they had 3 legs. However, the demon eye warlocks were not as brainless as the mad demons. They were very shrewd, and the reason why they did not arrive at the battlefield at the first moment was to let the mad demons attack first. Once they entangled the human defenders on the city wall, the demon eye warlocks would be safer. Their wishful thinking was excellent, so they only arrived at the city at this time. A formidable magic eye warlock with 12 magic eyes on top of his head issued a sharp howl. Immediately, all the magic eye warlocks quickly spread out into formation, with the magic eyes on top of their heads aimed at the position of the southeast fortified fortress's city wall. Their magic eyes could only shoot straight rays, so attacking from below the city wall wouldn't be very effective. However, the commander of the magic eye warlocks was very shrewd. His goal was very simple, and that was to directly attack the city wall. With the collective attack of more than 13,000 magic eye warlocks, even if the southeast fortress's city wall was 100 meters thick, it would only take a few concentrated attacks to blast open a gap. Once they lost the obstruction of the city wall, how could the southeast fortress resist the army of 500,000 demons? This move of his was very insidious. Moreover, as soon as he arrived, the 10 magic eye warlocks on top of his head were the first to shoot out, leaving a 1-meter deep scorch mark on the city wall. There was no doubt that this was the target that he had designated for the other magic eye warlocks to attack. If these magic eye warlocks were to really attack repeatedly, it would be a big blow to the southeast fortress. At this time, the mad demons had begun to climb up the city wall, and the avian demons in the air had also learned their lesson. They quickly dispersed into formation, looking for opportunities. How could the southeast fortress stop these magic eye warlocks? Of course there was a way, because the southeast fortress was no longer the battlefield of the Temple of Warriors, but the Temple of the Federation. A shrill whistle suddenly sounded outside the city. Before the magic eye warlocks could understand what was going on, they saw a large number of magic eye warlocks falling down like wheat being reaped. Figures unexpectedly drilled out of the ground, crazily slaughtering these magic eye warlocks at close range. Assassins, it was assassins. The total number of assassins lying in ambush outside the city was more than 10,000. They had been waiting patiently. After giving way to the mad demons, their target was these magic eye warlocks, who mainly used magic attacks. The magic eye warlocks were tall and had 3 legs, but they were pure magic soldiers. Melee combat was their worst skill. They would never have thought that the threat did not appear in the southeast stronghold, but appeared under their feet. It was like the lurkers of the Luke clan of the demon race, launching a fatal attack on them. The magic eye warlocks were definitely too clever for their own good. If they were following the mad demons, then at this time the mad demons could still support them a little. But they were completely separated from the mad demons. The position where they launched their attack was still a considerable distance away from the city wall. The mad demons were more focused on moving forward, so they did not notice the crisis on their side at all. 10,000 assassins. What kind of concept was that? These 13,000 magic eye warlocks were almost wiped out under the slaughter of the assassins in less than 3 minutes. Wasn't that right? When magic soldiers encountered assassins at close range, what else could they do other than die? It was just like the result of having an assassin with a dagger standing behind a magician. The necromancer demon god Samanaga, who was watching the battle from afar, had a look of astonishment on his face. Even in his dreams, he had never imagined that this would be the result of his 50,000-strong army. The humans clearly had a premeditated arrangement. Those assassins had obviously been hiding there for a long time. Otherwise, how could they hide from them? Only then did Samakina realize that the southeast fortress had long known of their arrival and was fully prepared. In his opinion, the warrior's temple, which could be broken with less than 3 waves of full-force attacks, had become so hard. Moreover, what made him feel the most crisis was the appearance and number of the enemy summoners, magicians, and assassins. Didn't the 6 major human temples fight on their own? Why were there so many powerhouses from other temples in the southeast fortress? At the same time when the assassins launched their attack, the mad demons attacking the city wall were also met with a disaster. There were indeed some mad demons that rushed to the top of the southeast fortress, but what awaited them were the sharp blades of the night and the warriors. How could they pose a threat to the southeast fortress with such a small number of mad demons? It would take more time and more people to wear them down. At this time, thorns grew on the wall of the southeast fortress. Earth thorns protruded from the wall without warning. At this time, the mad demons had almost covered the entire wall of the southeast fortress. On such a wide and tall wall, there were at least 3,000 mad demons climbing at the same time. In the next instant, all 3,000 mad demons were nailed to the wall. The 500 earth magicians who had been holding back for so long finally made their move. When the corpses of the mad demons fell from the wall and caused chaos in the mad demon army, the 10,000 assassins who had ambushed the warlock with the magic eye arrived from the rear. They were accompanied by explosive fireballs that fell from the sky. 25,000 mad demons were surrounded by the southeast fortress's wall. Even if Samakina wanted to rescue them from afar, it would be too late. Rays of golden light fell from the top of the wall and shone on the injured assassins. With the care of the priests, the combat power of the assassins increased exponentially. Their individual strength was already above that of the mad demons. Now that the mad demons were in chaos, and they had the support of the fire magicians and priests, the assassins should not have suffered any more casualties. The avian demons in the air were not fools. They did not dare to approach the southeast fortress again. If they did, they would only become targets for the magicians on the top of the wall. The remaining 6,000 avian demons retreated in panic, leaving only corpses on the ground outside the wall. Cheers instantly burst out from the southeast fortress like a tsunami. From Qiu Yonghao to the most ordinary soldiers, their emotions and morale had been completely ignited at this moment. The humans had been fighting against the demon race for so many years, but they had never been able to hold their heads up high like now. Even with the original strength of the southeast fortress, the 50,000 demon race definitely couldn't break through it. However, it was also impossible to deal with the combined attack of the mad devil race and the demon bird race without suffering any losses. The fighting strength of the mad devil race and the demon bird race was quite good, not to mention the cooperation of a large number of demon warlocks. They could be regarded as the elite of the demon race. However, it was different this time. With the cooperation of the 6 major classes, the battle had ended before the priests could even make a move. It was a complete victory. The mad demons and warlock with the magic eye were completely annihilated. Almost half of the avian demons were killed. With such a huge loss, even Samikina, who was in command of 500,000 troops, was a little anxious. That was close to 1/10 of the strength. Although it was not the main force, it was still a very important part of the strength. This was the advantage of the cooperation of the 6 major classes. The effect of the cooperation of the 6 major classes was much better than when the 6 major temples fought alone. This was the first time the advantages of the new federation had been shown on the battlefield after the establishment of the southeastern fortress. It also made the experts of the 6 major classes feel relieved. In terms of overall strength, they were no match for the demons. However, with the cooperation of the 6 major classes, it would not be easy for the demons to break through the impregnable fortress. The timely intelligence had allowed them to be fully prepared. Samikina was so angry that his face turned ashen. His eyes glowed fiercely. He said, 2-headed demon vultures, avian demons, flaming demons, wolf demons, leopard demons, spore demons as support. The Earth Dragon Tribe Stealers will move out in stealth mode. I want to see how many more traps they have. Garbo, Storas, Phoenix, the 3 of you will move out to support the army. Even if you can't break through the southeastern fortress, you must at least open a gap for me. Yes. 3 demon gods flashed out from the rear and bowed respectfully to Samina. Then, their figures flashed, and they transformed into 3 streams of light that flew straight into the sky. The demon race army had launched its attack once again. Compared to the previous time, the demon army this time had a qualitative leap in both quantity and quality. There were more than 100,000 of them. Once again, they rushed towards the southeastern fortress. On the ground, the wolf demons and leopard demons rushed forward under the cover of the huge flaming demons. In the sky, the avian demons and 2-headed demon vultures that had retreated previously formed a more powerful attack. More importantly, there were more than a dozen spore demons appearing between them. Not only were the spore demons the fastest flying magic soldiers of the demons, but they also had a strong restraining effect on the enemy. That annoying mucus was something that humans were afraid of no matter what class they were. Moreover, the demon army this time was led by a demon god. It was a world of difference compared to the previous tentative attacks. Looking at the terrifying demon army in the distance, Qiu Yonghao's expression changed. If it was in the past, such an army of demons would have been enough to cause heavy losses to the southeastern fortress, or even the risk of being breached. The 72 demon god pillars of the demons had different forms, but they did not often appear on the battlefield. Therefore, even as the former temple master of the warrior temple, Qiu Yonghao did not know the strength of the 3 demon gods. However, from the 3 demon god pillars that lit up in the distance, He could tell that the three demon gods were definitely not at the bottom of the ranking. Temple Master Chiyo, don't worry. I know these three demon gods, Yi Sanmi, who was standing beside Chiyo Yonghao, said in a deep voice. All the eternal heroes were wearing a large black cloak that completely covered their bodies. Hearing Yi Sanmi's calm voice, Chiyo Yonghao could not help but feel a little guilty. In the face of the powerful demons, he was still not calm enough. That's the 33rd demon god of the demons, Garbo, the 36th demon god of the demons, Storas, and the 37th demon god of the demons, Phoenix. These three guys mainly support and magic. They're quite useful on the battlefield, but their individual combat abilities are average. Although Yi Sanmi had been in hibernation for thousands of years, his knowledge of the demon gods was much better than the higher-ups of the warrior temple. Among the 72 demons, other than the name of the demon emperor, the names of the other demon gods would never change. In other words, no matter which generation the moon demon was from, they would always be called Agars, and the star demon would always be called Vesak. That was why he could name the three demon god. Hearing the names, the information of the three demon gods immediately flashed in Chiyo Yonghao's mind. He said in a deep voice, Garbo's title is the arcane demon god. He's good at casting arcane magic. He's mainly support. Among the 72 demons, he's almost the only one who's all support. His individual combat ability is very weak, but he's ranked 33rd. This shows how strong he is in the support aspect. Storas's title is the Curse Demon God. He's good at all kinds of curse magic. He's very annoying. Phoenix's title is the Dark Phoenix. He's good at fire and dark magic. Although he's ranked last among the three demon gods, his combat ability is the strongest. After reciting the abilities of the three demon gods, Chiyo Yonghao's heart sank a little. The role that the three demon gods could play on the battlefield was absolutely terrifying. It was clear that the necromancer demon god Samakina did not really lose his cool because of the failure just now. This wave of enemy attack was not easy to resist. Leave Garbo and the spore demons to me, Yi Sanmi said calmly. Yi Sanmi said faintly, the demons don't know of our existence. Since that's the case, I'll give them a gift. However, I only have one chance, so I can only take care of one of the three demon gods. Once I attack one, the other two will definitely use demon god transformation. It'll be a tough battle. While they were discussing and arranging their tactics, the demon army in the distance was getting closer and closer. The arcane demon god Garbo did not look much different from a human. He had a head of long dark blue hair and was wearing a luxurious silver robe. However, his appearance was a little wretched. He had an aquiline nose and toad eyes. He was holding a thick blue staff in his hand. His flight was completely based on his control of the element. He did not have wings. As he flew forward, Garbo chanted a spell. Soon, a layer of dark blue light shrouded the demon army below. Immediately, the nearly 10,000 demons at the front were covered by the blue light. Their speed suddenly increased. Arcane spell, group agility spell. As a pure support spell, the arcane demon god Garbo's support spell had a huge range that no other mage could compare to. His casting speed was very fast. After the group agility spell, another layer of red light shrouded the flaming demon caterpillars, wolf demons, and leopard demons. This time, it was the group brute force spell. That was only the beginning. If he continued to cast his arcane spells, the combat power of the demon army would at least double, and their survivability on the battlefield would be greatly enhanced. This was under the premise that Garbo did not use demon god transformation. The duration of demon god transformation was limited. Obviously, he wanted to use it at the most critical moment of the battle. However, he did not know that he had already become Yi Sanmi's target. Unlike Garbo, Stokes and Phoenix had not made their moves yet. This was because their casting range was not as far as Garbo's, and they were all targeting their opponent. Therefore, it would be better for them to cast their spells closer to the southeast fortress. At this moment, Garbo was still 5 kilometers away from the southeast fortress. Even single-target forbidden spells could rarely attack from such a distance. Therefore, he did not realize that he would be threatened. At the top of the southeast fortress, Yi Sanmi took off his cloak, revealing an old face. His iron-gray skin had a metallic texture, but his eyes were very strange. They did not look like the eyes of undead creatures at all. His emerald eyes were crystal clear, and there were only tiny emerald flames dancing in the depths of his pupils. Yi Sanmi raised his hand and made a grabbing motion in the air. A huge bow suddenly appeared in his hand. The bow was longer than his height. Its entire body was dark gold, but the bowstring was faintly colored. As soon as the bow appeared, Qiu Yonghao, who was very close to it, felt as if his soul was being sucked in. There were many gorgeous patterns on the bow, but they were cleverly concealed by the dark gold luster. Yi Sanmi held the middle section of the bow with his left hand and slowly lifted it in front of him. He placed his right hand on the bowstring and drew the bow slowly without any arrows. The moment he began to draw the bow, Qiu Yonghao subconsciously took a few steps back, and the people around him could not help but step aside. There seemed to be an invisible airflow rising from Yi Sanmi's body like a rising flame. As he drew the bow, there was also an invisible airflow surging. However, the strange thing was that both the dark gold on the bow and the bowstring dimmed and became inconspicuous. Is this a godly weapon? Qiu Yonghao was experienced and knowledgeable. He could tell at a glance that this huge bow was extraordinary. He could not help but gasp. This eternal hero actually had a godly weapon, and it seemed to be not only an ancient godly weapon, but also related to the elves. Some of the patterns on the bow were unique to the ancient elves. Qiu Yonghao could not tell what they were, but he could tell that they were related to the elves. Jappa's third arcane spell was about to be completed. He was an individual demon god without his own race. Therefore, he did not care much about the deaths of the mad demons and the magic eye warlock. He was just very disdainful of Samakina's command. In terms of overall control as an arcane demon god, he had always thought of himself as the best in the world. However, because he did not have direct combat power, he had never been able to become the commander of the front line. Therefore, he felt a little depressed in his heart. Finally, it was time for him to enter the battlefield. The arcane demon god Jappa was ready to go all out and let all the demons see the power of his pure support. At this moment, Jappa's heart suddenly tightened, and the spell he was chanting was automatically interrupted. He only felt as if his heart was being clenched by an invisible hand, and he could not help but groan slightly. He subconsciously looked in the direction of the southeast fortress. What he saw was a pair of dark green eyes and a huge bow. Impossible! What kind of bow and arrow could reach such a long distance? While Jia Bo was still in a state of shock, unable to believe that the other party was able to attack him, an emerald flame suddenly soared into the sky from the top of the southeastern fortress, reaching a height of over 100 meters. The sudden appearance of the flames gave the demons a fright. Immediately afterward, a 7-colored ray of light shot out like a meteor from the dark green light. The target is me! Jappa roared in his heart. The strong sense of crisis in his heart made him activate the power of his demon god pillar in an instant. In the demon's camp, the demon god pillar belonging to the arcane demon god Jappa suddenly burst out with a strong dark blue luster. The runes on the demon god pillar seemed to come to life as they instantly rose into the sky, forming an even larger symbol that flew straight at Jappa in the distance. However, Jappa's discovery was still a little too late. The moment the colorful light shot out from the giant bow, the air 100 meters in front of Yi Sanmi made a buzzing sound. The colorful light flew for less than 100 meters before disappearing in the air. Jia Bo's demon god transformation wasn't slow, but just as the huge dark blue rune flew to his back and started to fuse with his body, Jia Bo suddenly stopped. The air in front of him suddenly split open, and a colorful light appeared instantly. The only thing Japa could do in time was use his huge blue staff to block the attack. However, the colorful light disappeared again in the next instant. The huge symbol behind Japa quickly merged with his body, causing it to expand rapidly. Hundreds of runes also appeared and circled around his body. Those were the combination runes of arcane spells. In the demon god transformation state, the power of arcane spells that Japa cast would be more than doubled. However, the arcane demon god was currently hovering there motionlessly with a blank look in his eyes. He was still staring into the distance with a look of disbelief in his eyes. The cursed demon god Stokes and the dark phoenix also sensed that something was wrong. The two demon gods immediately activated their respective demon god transformations without hesitation. The cursed demon god Stokes let out a caw-caw sound, and a pair of black wings instantly unfurled. Under the illumination of the orange-red demon god pillar in the distance, his originally humanoid body transformed into a giant crow with a wingspan of 10 meters. Both his eyes and beak were orange-red. The Dark Phoenix's demon god transformation was much more gorgeous. His body was more than 20 meters long, and his wingspan was even wider. His dazzling black body was covered in dark golden flame patterns. He had transformed into a dark phoenix. However, their demon god transformations did not affect Japa at all. At the same time as they transformed, streaks of colorful light began flowing out of Japa's body. Soon after, with a loud bang, Japa's body suddenly exploded in the center of the arcane runes. Countless streaks of colorful light shot out, scaring the cursed demon god Stokes and the dark phoenix so much that they quickly dodged. The arcane demon god Japa, who was ranked 33rd among the demons, became the first demon god to perish on the battlefield since the start of the war. Samakina, who had been sitting steadily in his seat, stood up abruptly with a hint of horror in his eyes. One had to know that although Jiabo was not good at fighting, his cultivation was Tier 9 Level 3. If he combined with the Demon God Pillar and used the Demon God transformation, he could even have the combat power of Tier 9 Level 5 or above. The support of the entire battlefield was also very strong, but he was killed by the enemy in a second. Didn't they say that there were no god weapons in the warrior temple? However, the colorful light just now was clearly produced by a god weapon. A god-level bow and arrow? On the battlefield, the most terrifying artifact was undoubtedly the magic staff that could amplify one's magic. However, the greatest threat to an individual was the bow. The appearance of a legendary bow could be said to be a huge threat to any deity, including the 4th-ranked necromancer deity, Samanaga. This southeastern fortress was much more difficult to attack than he had imagined. Samanaga's expression couldn't help but turn ugly. Clang! The huge bow fell to the ground. Yisami held the bow firmly in his left hand, but the light in his eyes had dimmed significantly. It was obvious that it was not easy for him to shoot the arrow that killed the demon god. However, the arrow had greatly boosted the morale of the entire southeastern fortress. The enemy had already arrived. As a powerful race that combined magic and physical attacks, the fire demon centipedes began to hurl fireballs at the top of the city wall as soon as they arrived. At the same time, they used their tall and sturdy bodies to protect the wolf demons and leopard demons behind them. The earth element spell, Rockfall, descended from the sky and bombarded the area in front of the walls. The elemental stones would disappear automatically after being bombarded, so they would not become stepping stones for the demons. 500 earth element mages attacked at the same time, temporarily stopping the enemies on the ground. However, the wolf demons had tough bodies and strong combat strength, while the leopard demons were extremely fast. Therefore, the Rockfall spell could only do limited damage to them, and could only prevent them from attacking the walls. After Yi Sami's attack, Chiu Yonghao had completely regained his composure. He gave orders one after another, and the front of the walls was filled with shield warriors. Inside the fortress, the night army had already assembled, ready to leave the fortress at any time. The night army was most useful in the wilderness. The fire element mage's main task was to deal with the enemy's air force. The two-headed demon vulture and the bird demon had arrived at the same time. The bird demon was good at physical attacks, while the two-headed demon vulture was good at both dark and fire magic attacks, as well as some physical attacks. They posed a great threat to the southeast fortress. However, Yi Sanmi's arrow was too powerful. Therefore, the flying demons slowed down significantly. Even the cursed demon god Stokes and the dark phoenix did not get too close to the walls. Even if they used demon god transformation, they could not guarantee that they would be able to escape unscathed from the terrifying attack of the godly bow. Although Yi Sanmi had only killed one demon god, it could be said that he had reduced the effectiveness of the three demon gods to the minimum by himself. The necromancer demon god Samakina had switched to commanding the battle. He said, "Biflans Hagati, you two go help Stokes and Phoenix." Yes. Two majestic figures flashed out from behind Samakina. They turned into black and brownish-yellow lights respectively and flew toward the battlefield. The monster demon god Biflans was ranked 46th among the 72 demon god pillars. He was 10 meters tall and looked like a magnified version of the god's whisk. He was very strong in close combat, but he did not know any magic. His body was made of copper and his bones were made of iron. He had an amazing defense. The ox demon god Hagati was ranked 48th among the 72 demon god pillars. He was a giant ox and was one of the most skilled in defense. The reason why Samakina sent them out was simple. He wanted to protect the cursed demon god and the dark phoenix demon god, who had relatively weak defense. He wanted them to be able to unleash their magic power to the fullest on the battlefield and turn the situation around. The monster demon god and the ox demon god had a much easier time dealing with the arrows. Just as Samakina sent the two demon gods to the front as reinforcements, the attack on the southeast fortress was already in full swing. When the Earth Magician's magic power was running low, the wolf and panther demons had already started attacking the fortress. They were the main combat race of the demons and were very powerful. The fire demon mantises were not good at climbing, but once they reached the top of the wall, they would be a great threat to the warriors on the wall. The shield warriors bravely stood at the front and clashed with the wolf and panther demons. Although the warrior temple's professionals were the weakest among the 6 temples, they were also the most numerous. The shield warriors stood at the front while the berserkers stood at the back. They fought the wolf, demons, and panther demons to the death. The upper echelons of the warrior temple all appeared on the battlefield. No matter how strong the wolf and panther demons were, they were no match for warriors above the 6th grade. A huge golden sword light swept across the top of the wall. All the wolf and panther demons, as well as the few fire demon mantises that had just climbed up the wall, were sliced in half at the waist. It was Chiu Yonghao. The warriors above the 8th grade stood on the battlements, preventing the wolf and panther demons from taking a single step forward. However, the demons' attacks from the air had also arrived. The twin-headed demon vulture's magic and the bird demon lightning spears continuously rained down on the southeast fortress, causing damage to the Federation Temple's army. Fortunately, Chiu Yonghao's one-on-one strategy was very successful. The magicians were well protected, but they were not strong enough to fight back against the enemies in the air. What surprised Samakina was that for some reason, the southeast fortress's strongest defensive weapon, the magic cannons, did not show their power. It was as if they had all disappeared into thin air. This caused the demon's air force to be even stronger. A warrior fell to the ground with his throat slit. Instantly, a gap appeared on the wall, but the berserkers behind quickly blocked it with their bodies. Magicians use the detection spell. There are earth dragons. One detection spell after another quickly flashed on the city wall. Sure enough, a large number of earth dragons appeared on the battlefield between the panther demons and the wolf demons. Even with the illumination of the detection spell, the invisible earth dragons were like transparent clouds. It was very difficult to detect them in this battle, and the casualties on the southeast fortress's wall immediately increased. In the sky, the monster demon god and the terror ox demon god were finally in position. Under their protection, the dark phoenix and cursed demon god Stokes finally approached the city wall. They were also preparing their magic. At this point in the battle, the demons finally gained the upper hand with their powerful aerial and aerial strength. A dark green light suddenly became the focus of everyone's attention. As it slid down from the sky, it left a twisted path in its wake. The cursed demon god Stokes' eyes were filled with malevolence as he said, "Die, you despicable humans. You actually killed Jayabo. I want to see how you're going to defend against my corrosive swamp." The name sounded very simple, but this was a true forbidden spell. It was a forbidden spell filled with the power of a curse. It was not only targeted at humans but also the city wall. However, it was also at this moment that a fiery red figure suddenly leaped from the top of the city wall. A pair of huge flaming wings spread open, propelling his body toward the dark green light with lightning speed. The weapon in his hand was a spear. As he pointed the spear forward, a translucent fiery red crystal suddenly appeared on the tip of the spear. The fiery red crystal pierced into the dark green light ball. The dark green light ball paused in the air, as if it was about to explode. However, the fiery red crystal that pierced into it exploded first. It was a mixture of red and green flames, and it instantly rose into the air, forming a huge fireball in the sky. Immediately afterward, the fiery red figure pointed the spear in his hand toward the distant sky. Chapter 291. As the red figure pointed the spear in his hand towards the sky, the red and green flames instantly turned into a huge pillar of fire, directly charging into the twin-headed demon vulture camp not far away. Over 100 twin-headed demon vultures let out miserable shrieks under the terrifying flames. Even if the demon gods wanted to rescue them, they wouldn't be able to do so in time. It was a warrior. His entire body was covered in fiery red armor. The long spear in his hand was also fiery red. Blazing flames rose from it. However, his body seemed a little illusory because of the high temperature around his body. It was impossible to see his face clearly. What a powerful warrior! The 4 demon gods in the sky were all shocked. Although they weren't afraid of such an opponent, the warrior's cultivation level still shocked them. That attack looked like a crystal, but it was clearly a domain skill. Otherwise, how could the cursed demon god's forbidden spell, which had been charged up for so long, be so easily dispelled? The terror ox demon god Hajati let out a loud roar, and his huge body instantly expanded to 100 meters. His weapon was a huge staff, which also expanded along with his body. It completely protected the cursed demon god Stokes behind him. The huge cudgel swept out, heading straight for the fiery red warrior. The warrior snorted coldly, pointing the spear in his hand forward. At the same time, his body instantly exploded, and the spear brought a ring of fire with it as it rose into the sky. The fire dragon spun rapidly as it flew into the sky, while the warrior himself flashed and landed on the city wall, avoiding the terror ox demon god Hajati's staff. The ring of fire exploded in the sky, turning into flaming blades that shot out in all directions. Instantly, they heavily struck the twin-headed demon vultures again, and another 100 twin-headed demon vultures perished under this attack. The terror ox demon god was enraged. Relying on his powerful defense, he didn't care about the spells shooting at him from the city wall at all. Behind him, the shadow of a huge bull slowly appeared. The bull was brownish-yellow in color, with only a pair of white eyes. A terrifying aura instantly rose, and the thick muscles on Hajati's body began to bulge, mixing with the thick veins, causing his already huge body to become even more terrifying. The huge staff in his hand also turned into a beam of light, the brownish-yellow light shining brightly. Demon God Transformation. as one of the deity wardens who was most adept at attacking, he displayed his most tyrannical strength in the sky above the southeastern fortress. At the same time, he descended toward the southeastern fortress and smashed the huge rod in his hand that was over 150 meters long and 10 meters in diameter at the city wall. If he were to hit the wall, not to mention the number of casualties, perhaps he would blast a huge hole in the entire southeastern fortress's city wall. At this moment, a yellow figure suddenly appeared in midair. This yellow figure looked very strange. His upper body was bare, and his skin was iron gray. However, his entire body was emitting an intense yellow light. His majestic muscles appeared powerful and beautiful. The weapon in his hand was also a long staff. His bald head reflected the yellow light emitted from his body, and his eyes were burning with yellow flames. Facing such a terrifying strike from the Terror Bull demon god, he actually used the staff in his hand to meet it. One had to know that the size and aura of the two sides were completely disproportionate. Boom! A thunderclap sounded in the sky above the southeastern fortress. The deafening sound caused the soldiers on both sides to tremble violently. There was even a momentary pause on the battlefield. A shocking scene appeared. The Terror Bull demon god Hajati's body was sent flying over 1,000 meters away. Although the bald warrior was also sent flying, he quickly stabilized his body in the air. Atai? Heavens, a human warrior is actually on par with the Terror Bull demon god Hajati in terms of strength. This is simply unbelievable. One must not forget that Hajati had already cast the demon god transformation, and his strength had reached its strongest state. Even if he was not particularly adept in combat, his physical strength could still be ranked in the top 10 among the demons. This is satisfying. The bald warrior laughed out loud. His body flashed, and he took the initiative to charge at the Terror Bull demon god Hajati. The fiery red figure from before also reappeared on the battlefield, and he went straight for the cursed demon god Stokes. Without a doubt, these two warriors were war god-level powerhouses. Moreover, they were not inferior to the cursed demon god and the Terror Bull demon god in a one-on-one situation. In fact, their attributes seemed to be slightly suppressing each other. This made the necrotic demon god Samakina, who was commanding the battle from afar, pay attention to them. The southeastern fortress actually has such powerhouses? Samakina was a little surprised. Just like how the Temple Federation understood the demons also had a deep understanding of the powerhouses of the Temple Federation. Samakina was very clear about how many Tier 9 powerhouses there were in the Warrior Temple. However, in his impression, the Fire and Earth warriors did not seem to have such powerful existences. With his cultivation base, he could naturally see that the bald warrior was able to contend with the Terror Bull demon god Hajati in terms of strength because he was a domain master. Moreover, the domain master should be able to amplify one's strength, which was why he could be on par with the demon god Hajati in his demon god transformation. Hajati was ranked 48th, and he still did not have his own domain. With his level 2 tier 9 cultivation base and the demon god transformation, he did not have much of an advantage over his opponent. If he could not defeat his opponent in the demon god transformation state, he would most likely be at a disadvantage once the demon god transformation wore off. The fire warrior's combat strength was even stronger. Not only did he have a domain, but he also had a domain skill. Fire was not as effective against curses as light, but fire at the level of a domain skill was a different story. It would not be easy for the cursed demon god Stokes to defeat his opponent while he was in close combat. Fortunately, the monster demon god Biflons and the Dark Phoenix had not encountered any problems yet. A large patch of dark flames had already descended on the fortress. At this moment, the role of the priests was revealed. A layer of golden light was propped up above the fortress, resisting the erosion of the dark flames. On the other hand, Yi Sanmi, who was on top of the fortress, raised his godly bow again, his eyes fixed on Phoenix, who was casting magic. The scene of Jiabwa being killed in an instant brought great psychological pressure to Phoenix, so much so that his magic was actually interrupted once. He quickly dodged behind the monster demon god Biflons and calmed down. Biflons did not dare to attack the fortress just like that. His priority was to protect Phoenix. Among the demon gods, ranking determined status. Although Phoenix, who was ranked 37th, did not have his own domain, his status was much higher than Biflons, who was ranked 46. It could be said that Yi Sami had single-handedly killed a demon god and effectively restrained 2 demon gods, causing the Phoenix demon god's combat power to be greatly reduced, and the monster demon god, Biflons, did not dare to attack the city. Until now, most of the eternal heroes in the southeastern fortress had not made a move yet. They were hiding their strength. An old man beside Qiu Yonghao, who had just killed a large number of enemies with his sword domain, asked in a low voice, "Temple Master Qiu, should we use our arrangements?" This old man was also an eternal hero. There were 2 other people beside him. Although their bodies were covered by large cloaks, the elemental waves around them were extremely viscous. "No, we can't do it now. The demons have not made a move yet," Qiu Yonghao said in a deep voice. At this moment, he had completely calmed down. After witnessing the strength of the eternal heroes, Qiu Yonghao's confidence had greatly increased. With these eternal heroes holding the fort, how many chances did the necromancer demon god Samakina have? As he spoke, Qiu Yonghao leaped into the air and threw himself into the battle. As the former temple master of the warrior temple, he had comprehended the mysteries of sword intent and sword domain. He was extremely destructive on the battlefield. In order to avoid more casualties, Qiu Yonghao led a group of warriors above the Tier 6 into the air and stood with the avian demon and the twin-headed demon vulture. The battlefield was in a stalemate. As the priests resisted the magic, the casualties of the humans gradually increased. Samakina looked at the situation on the battlefield coldly. For some reason, he felt like he had missed something. Since the beginning of the war, he had invested 150,000 soldiers. Although they were not the strongest races under his control, it was close to a third of his forces. Judging from the current situation, it was quite advantageous for them. The southeast fortress was in a stalemate. He believed that as long as more soldiers were invested, the battle would definitely develop in a one-sided manner. However, he was not anxious at all. He did not feel too much pity for his elite army. He only cared about his own people. What did the lives of other races have to do with him? The more they died, the more his people would benefit from plundering the resources of the humans. Currently, apart from the 100,000 demons, most of the races that were not sent to the battlefield were races with demon god totems. Although Samakina had a high status and authority, he still had to give the other demon gods some face. Otherwise, it would not look good if the demon emperor found out. "The southeast fortress has begun," Long Tianyin said to Long Haochen. The grandfather and grandson were in a small meeting room. Apart from them, the members of the Bright Glimmer of Dawn monster hunters were also present. Long Haochen nodded and said, "Yu Ye's intel is very accurate. This is a battle that we are confident of winning. Samakina has fallen into the trap. What about the other side?" Long Tianyin said, "We have also found traces of the enemy on the other side. It is estimated that in 1 to 2 days, the army led by demon god Marbus and the bear Veilfar will arrive at Wansho Pass. The cooperation between the hell demons and the bear demon is even more troublesome. Although Chern Hongba is usually very stingy, he does have a lot of good stuff hidden. It will not be easy for Marbus and Veilfar to take advantage of him." Long Haochen said, "There are less than 2 days until the 3 days that the demon emperor mentioned. I believe he is also paying attention to the battlefield over there. Even if the news is not as fast as we are, it won't be too far off. Let him be happy for a while. I'm afraid he still thinks that we don't know about the situation over there. The southeast fortress and Wansho Pass are also at a loss." Long Tianyin sighed and said, "It's a pity that we will have to consume too many resources this time. However, as long as we can defeat the demons in one battle, it will be worth it. I am not worried about the southeast fortress and Wanshou Pass. The most important thing is still the Demon Emperor. Long Haochen, do you really have the confidence to resist the Demon Emperor's attack?" Long Haochen smiled faintly, but did not answer his grandfather's question. Was he really confident? Of course he was, but whether or not he could resist, how would he know before fighting? According to Yi Xiaolei's analysis of the Demon Emperor, he had almost no chance. Of course, this was not taking into account the situation of Haoyue. Haoyue was his biggest trump card. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Long Haochen would not use this card, because Haoyue's appearance would definitely cause the Demon Emperor to go crazy. Kai pay attention to your safety. Long Haochen patted Kai-er's hand beside him. Kai smiled and said, "Don't worry, I will be back soon." After saying this, she turned around and left quietly. Wang Yuanyuan smiled bitterly and said, "If not for the quota being too few, I should be the one going. As the Warrior Temple's temple master, I am too unqualified." Long Haochen laughed and said, "Don't say that, the final decisive battle will only be here. What we have to face is the most terrifying power of the demons. There will be plenty of opportunities for you to display your strength. Outside the dragon-resisting mountain pass, Demon Camp. Your Majesty, the army led by Samakina has arrived at the southeast fortress." He immediately launched an attack on the southeast fortress. The moon demon Agars reported the latest news to the Demon Emperor. The Demon Emperor, lying on his side on his dragon bed, smiled indifferently and said, "He is really anxious, but it doesn't matter if the losses are a little bigger." Agars naturally understood the meaning of the Demon Emperor's words and said, "Your Majesty, should we also exert some pressure on the dragon-resisting mountain pass?" The Demon Emperor shook his head, revealing a faint smile on his face, and said, "No hurry, the ones who are anxious should be the humans. I want to play a game with Long Haochen. Only by slowly conquering will there be more fun. If I don't crush his confidence and faith, he will not surrender to me. Humans have been accumulating for 6,000 years, it is time to hand over some things. Pass my order to Samakina and Marbus, I don't care what they do, but they must use the shortest time to rush into the Temple Federation and launch an attack on the Holy City." "Yes." Agars respectfully complied, quickly turned around and left the tent. After leaving the Demon Emperor's tent, Agars frowned slightly, thinking that this time, humans really have no chance. His Majesty's methods are all overt schemes. One day later, in the southeast fortress, the entire walls of the southeast fortress were almost stained with blood of various colors. On the walls there were a lot of traces of damage. Fortunately, the fortress walls were strong enough and protected by magic arrays. The surface was riddled with holes, but the interior was still solid. The battle had been going on for a day and a night. Samakina was like a madman, mobilizing the demon army to launch wave after wave of attacks, not giving the southeast fortress a chance to breathe. The army of 500,000 took turns to fight. When the first wave of attacks ended, the second wave immediately rushed in. For a day and a night, the demons were caught off guard at the beginning, causing the demon eye warlocks and mad demons to suffer heavy losses. Overall, they still had an overwhelming advantage. Although they were constantly being pushed back by the southeast fortress also suffered a lot of losses, and their resistance seemed to be getting weaker and weaker. If not for the Night Legion in the city coming out to attack a few times, the casualties would have been even greater. However, the losses of the Devil race were even greater. There was no cannon fodder in this siege, all of them were elites. According to the statistics, among the 500,000 Devil race troops, 60,000 had perished in the offensive and defensive battles. It could be seen how fierce the offensive was. Although the casualties of human beings were not as great as those of the Devil race, there were still half of the number. Among them, on the southeast fortress side, the shield warriors, who had the strongest defense, suffered the most casualties. In most cases, they died protecting the magicians, summoners, and priests. The shield warriors used their lives and shields to protect the magical class players. As a result, even though some of the 8,000 magical class players were injured, only a few had died. Less than 300 of them had died in battle. This ratio was a miracle in such a tragic battlefield. The eyes of the magicians, summoners, and priests were all bloodshot. They fought desperately for a day and a night. Even though they were magic professions, they still hadn't left the city to rest. It wasn't that Qiu Yonghao didn't want them to, it was that they didn't want to leave. Seeing their companions die in battle to protect them, the eyes of the magicians were all bloodshot. At least half of the 300 magic professions that had died had burned their own lives to cast spells that were beyond their level. The powerhouses of the 6 major temples of the southeast fortress were all bloodshot, forcing the fierce offensive of the demons to retreat. They were even crazier than the mad demons. At this stage of the battle, willpower and fighting spirit were often more important than strength. The southeast fortress was already piled up like a mountain. "Damn it, Samakina is a lunatic!" Qiu Yonghao cursed as he stood on the city wall. A day and a night had passed. It was noon the next day, but the demons' offensive did not show any signs of weakening. Besides, Qiu Yonghao could clearly see that the demon army was already very tired. The powerhouses of the demons could not even exert 80% of their strength. Even so, Samakina still refused to give up. He continued to command them to attack the city. It should be known that the 500,000 demon troops hadn't rested since their rapid march. They had been fighting on the battlefield all along. No human commander would command their army like this, but Samanaga had done so. Moreover, he had already killed 4 tribal commanders who had raised objections to his command. Among the demon gods of the demons, apart from Jayabo who had fallen first, the other demon gods had also taken turns to attack. Although they were all blocked, they had greatly restrained the strength of the southeast fortress. "How long can our setup last?" Qiu Yonghao asked the Eternal Hero who was covered in a cloak. The Eternal Hero, who was obviously a magician, was injecting sticky light elements into Qiu Yonghao's body. These Eternal Heroes had been transferred from the Assassin Temple. "There won't be a problem in the next 2 days. My setup can last for up to 5 days. Excluding the time it took to set up in advance, we have at least 2 days left." "All right." Qiu Yonghao clenched his teeth and said, "I don't believe that Samakina can attack for another 2 days without falling into the trap. I will definitely hold on until then, even if it costs me my life." The number of soldiers and resources gathered in the southeast fortress was quite large. As long as the powerhouses were not suppressed too much by the other side, the seemingly weakened resistance on the battlefield would still not collapse. At this time, Samakina was also a little anxious. It had been a day and a night, and the human resistance was still very tenacious. What surprised him the most was not that the southeast fortress had all the powerhouses from the 6 major temples, but that there were 5 or 6 more domain-level powerhouses in the southeast fortress, especially the one with the divine-level bow and arrow. It was precisely because of his threat that the charging demon gods did not dare to use their full strength and were always wary of his attacks. On the demons' side, the morale of the army had begun to waver. Other than the 100,000 demons, the other races had taken turns to go into battle, and all of them had suffered varying degrees of damage. More importantly, after a continuous march and a day and night of battle, the demon army was already very tired. The dissatisfied voices were getting louder and louder. Even the demon gods were looking at Samakina with increasingly unfriendly gazes. Even a fool could see what Samakina was up to. His army of demons had a good rest for a day and night, and their spirits had been raised to the best state. However, Samakina still did not allow them to step onto the battlefield, lest his direct subordinates were injured. If it wasn't for the overwhelming presence of Samakina and the 4 demon kings around him, perhaps these demon gods would have already voiced their dissent. There was a limit to their patience. Other than Samakina, the demon god with the highest ranking here was the 11th pillar. If this continued, Samakina might not be able to control the situation. After all, he had somewhat angered everyone. Let's go talk to the undead demon god. One of the demon gods finally couldn't take it anymore and stood up abruptly. Among the 16 demon gods, 12 responded to his call and walked toward Samakina together. And at that moment, Samakina slowly rose from the commander's seat and said in a deep voice, "Pass down my order. The army at the front, retreat. Demon army, all attack. I will personally go into battle to kill the enemy." As he spoke, a pair of huge demon wings slowly unfolded behind him. He turned his head and glared coldly at the dozen demon gods who were walking toward him. In an instant, the demon gods stopped in their tracks. The demon army at the front retreated like the tide, while the 100,000 demons advanced slowly. All the demons above grade 6 flapped their wings and flew into the sky, while those below grade 6 were all infantry or cavalry. They formed neat formations and slowly advanced toward the southeast fortress. The undead demon god Samakina finally mobilized his most powerful direct army, the demons. The continuous battle put the southeast fortress under great pressure. Although the demons suffered great losses, the southeast fortress was also in a similar situation. The powerhouses were exhausted, the warriors had decreased sharply, and the mages had consumed too much mana. This was their weakest moment. Samakina's goal was to break into the Federation Temple in the shortest time possible. How could he let go of such a good opportunity? Therefore, he wanted to launch a fatal attack when the southeast fortress was at its weakest and achieve victory in one fell swoop. Among the 500,000 troops, the most powerful 100,000 demon gods finally appeared on the battlefield. They wanted to finish the battle in one fell swoop. The remaining dozen demon gods didn't follow Samakina into battle. At that moment, even the demon gods without a race were full of resentment. Of course, they could see Samakina's ambition and goal, but what could they do? The overall strength of the demons even surpassed that of the moon devils and star demons. 100,000 demons. What kind of terrifying strength was this? 4 great demon kings, in addition to countless demon overlords, commanders, and great demons, magic and martial as one. Their bodies were powerful, and their intelligence was not inferior to that of humans. With 100,000 demons moving out at the same time, what kind of terrifying scene was that? Even though the other deity wardens were aware that Samina was trying to take all the credit and seize the biggest reward after conquering the southeastern fortress, what could they do? Could they resist the undead demon god of the 5 demon god pillars? They couldn't, and they didn't dare to. Even if their combined strength still exceeded 300,000 soldiers, they weren't united, especially those races without demon god totems. They wouldn't listen to their orders. None of the demon gods dared to stand out. Hence, they could argue, but they didn't dare to really rebel. There was a temporary peace on the battlefield in front of the southeast fortress, but the atmosphere on the battlefield became even more oppressive. Large batches of the demons retreated from the front line. In the process of retreating, they gradually dispersed to the left and right, which made the 6 major class powerhouses of the southeast fortress, who had just relaxed a little, tense up instantly. The army of 100,000 demons approached the southeast fortress in an overwhelming manner. Under the request of the undead demon god Samakina, they deliberately slowed down a little, so that the huge pressure would be more deeply imprinted in the hearts of every soldier of the southeast fortress. On the walls of the southeast fortress, no matter which class they belonged to, some of them had participated in the Holy War 5 years ago. However, even in that Holy War, the demons had never launched such a crazy attack like today. They had been attacking relentlessly for a day and a night, and all of them were the most powerful and elite race of the demons. This was the first time they had seen such a situation. The demons seemed to be fighting to their last breath. Although the losses of the southeast fortress weren't as great as the demons, as the saying went, "You hurt the enemy 1,000 times, you hurt 800 times." Moreover, for some reason, the fortress's magic cannons were missing. Although the combat power of the 6 major classes had been greatly enhanced, the enemy was too strong. 500,000 elite demons. How terrifying was that? At this time, most of the soldiers in the southeast fortress were injured and exhausted. The warrior and the knight were in a better state because they had the advantage in numbers, so they could take turns to rest. However, the mages didn't get any rest at all. Even when Qiu Yonghao asked them to go down, they refused. The continuous battle on the walls had already exhausted them to death, and the mana in their bodies had long been depleted. Even with the replenishment of magical crystals, their mental strength was completely overdrawn. Almost every mage class had bloodshot eyes. However, the war wasn't over yet. The undead demon god Samakina had no intention of delaying the battle at all. On the contrary, he had finally mobilized his own demon army. 100,000 demon army was also the most powerful force in the demon army. On the walls of the southeast fortress, many people's eyes were filled with despair. Although they were not inferior to the enemy in terms of numbers, everyone knew very well how powerful the demons were. Once the demon army attacked the fortress, it would be impossible for them to resist. Qiu Yonghao's eyes were like an eagle's as he stared at the approaching demon's army. He could feel the weakness, helplessness, and despair of the soldiers in the southeast fortress, but in his heart, his will to fight was still strong. "Come on, Samakina, come on. I've waited long enough for you. Seniors, let's begin," Qiu Yonghao said to the 3 mages beside him respectfully. "Little Qiu, you did well. As expected of the temple master of the warrior temple." The leader of the mages praised Qiu Yonghao for some reason. Then, the 3 mages quickly turned around and left, disappearing from the walls in the blink of an eye. The knight and warrior who had fallen to the ground got up one after another and picked up their weapons. The mages also struggled to raise their staff. The spells they could cast were very few, and they could only kill more enemies at the last moment. The despair in everyone's eyes began to turn into determination. What was a holy war? This was a war between 2 races that would never end until one of them was dead. With the crazy attacks of the demons, everyone knew how the demons would massacre the people once the southeast fortress was breached. In that case, they might as well die in battle. The battlefield was the best place for any profession to hone their skills. Here, not only did they hone their cultivation, but they also trained their temperament. Without a doubt, seeing that the demon's army was about to arrive, every profession from the 6 great temples felt their hearts sublimate. If they could survive this battle, there was no doubt that they would become the true elites of the 6 great temples. "All mages, rest where you are." Qiu Yonghao's inexplicable order surprised the mages, summoners, and priests on the city wall. The enemies were already right in front of them, and they were asked to rest? This is an order. The humans will win, Qiu Yonghao emphasized. At the same time, he locked his gaze on the undead deity warden Samakina in the distant sky. The demons on the ground accounted for 70% of the demons, and 30% of them were above the 6th grade who could fly in the air. However, they didn't fly too high. In order to increase the pressure on the southeast fortress, they all flew within 100 to 150 meters from the ground. The evil demon race was a powerful race that combined magic and martial arts. In terms of the overall strength of the race, they were a terrifying existence that was only inferior to the heaven-defying demon-dragon race. The 4 great evil demon kings commanded the army in 4 different directions. The undead demon god Samanaga was in the middle. His face was already revealing disdain and intense killing intent. Despite the twists and turns, the southeast fortress was more tenacious than expected. However, none of that mattered anymore. Samakina had absolute confidence that he could break through the southeast fortress in the next attack. When that happened, the people from the 6 great temples would only become his stepping stones. The demons didn't kill ordinary humans, but they wouldn't show mercy to the professions from the 6 great temples. This was the best opportunity to strike a blow to the humans. If they didn't cripple the humans, how could the demons maintain their absolute advantage? The demon army was getting closer and closer. 5 miles, 4 miles, 3 miles, finally, the evil army was only 1,000 meters away from the city wall. Samanaga's terrifying appearance was completely presented to the humans. A deathly gray aura surrounded his body, and the terrifying death aura in the air turned into a huge demonic head that was about to bite down on the southeast fortress. Even though he was the only one who appeared this time, as the 4th terrifying existence among the 72 deity wardens, the deity wardens who had participated in the previous battles might not even be as powerful as him. Samanaga was absolutely confident that no human in the southeast fortress would be a match for him. Samakina. At that moment, a delicate voice sounded in the air. This voice came very suddenly, but it was abnormally clear. The rolling sound waves seemed to come from all directions, and the intense sound waves caused Samanaga's body to tremble slightly. He could tell from this voice that the newcomer did not come with good intentions. In the next instant, Samanaga seemed to have seen the most terrifying thing in the world. His entire body was sent flying, instantly retreating thousands of meters away. His face was filled with shock. What did he see? It was a pagoda that suddenly appeared in midair and fell from the sky. The pagoda was white, a white that was filled with majesty. As it fell, it became larger and larger, and under the white light, it landed on the demon head in the air. Everyone knew that the demon head was condensed from the power of the death demon god, Samanaga. But at this moment, the demon head actually collapsed under the suppression of the pagoda. It couldn't even escape from the white light. It instantly turned into wisps of gray smoke and disappeared in the white light, while the blazing white light became even more dazzling. The advancing demon army seemed to be under some kind of heavy pressure, and the demons in the sky fell to the ground one after another. At the same time, they looked up at the sky in shock. The pagoda had already grown to over 100 meters tall, and there was a faint 7-colored halo within the white light. Divine artifact. It was undoubtedly a divine artifact. However, even if it was a divine artifact, it wasn't enough to make the 100,000 demon army so afraid. What they were afraid of was the white light that was released by the divine artifact. That aura caused the power of darkness in every demon's body to surge and tremble violently. The necromancy demon god, Samanaga, had completely lost his previous calmness and determination. His eyes were filled with shock. It was that pagoda. It was that pagoda. If one were to ask Samanaga who he feared the most in his life, he would definitely answer the demon god emperor. There was no doubt about that. But if one were to ask him what he feared the most in this world, his answer would definitely be the pagoda he had faced in the dragon-resisting mountain pass, the Tower of Eternity that belonged to Long Houchin. Chapter 292. Back then, the Tower of Eternity almost completely devoured and destroyed the territory of the undead demon god Samakina, leaving him with too many painful memories. After that, it took him 3 years to restore his cultivation, and the damage to his origin took 5 years to fully recover. At this moment, the Tower of Eternity reappeared. Although the golden color had turned into white, the fear in Samakina's heart was even stronger. Even after he suffered a big loss last time, he understood that if he didn't use the territory, there might not be a problem. However, when facing the Tower of Eternity, he still had a look of fear. At the top of the Tower of Eternity, a beautiful figure stood proudly at the top of the Tower of Eternity. Her black dress made her even more eye-catching on the top of the Tower of Eternity, and the huge black scythe in her hand shone with blue and purple radiance. She looked at the undead demon god Samina from afar, and a terrifying murderous aura instantly bloomed. Combined with the white halo emitted by the huge Tower of Eternity, it actually intimidated all the fiend race. The one who could control the Tower of Eternity and release the power of purification to shock the demons was naturally the federal vice president of the temple, the deputy leader of the Light of Dawn monster hunters, the Grim Reaper, the Saint of Samsara, Kair. No one noticed that when the demons in the air landed one after another, Chiu Yonghao's eyes showed a hint of ecstasy. He waved his right hand below the city wall, and a golden light flashed in the air. If Kair didn't appear, such an obvious golden light would definitely be noticed by Samakina, but at this moment, Kair completely attracted his attention. Not to mention the fact that the Tower of Eternity made him deeply apprehensive, just the aura emitted from Kair's body made him feel an intense threat. Fifth rank of the ninth step, that was actually the aura of a fifth rank of the ninth step? How could this be? Since when did the humans have a rank 9 rank 5 powerhouse? Moreover, it was such a young girl who was controlling the Tower of Eternity that had left him with bitter memories. Based on the demon's understanding of humans, it seemed that only the star Holy Knight Yang Haoyu, who was far away in the Knights Templars and had not appeared on the battlefield for a long time, was at level 9 level 5. Of course, there was also the rising Long Haochen, who might have reached that level. But why was there a girl who had also reached this level? Samanaga suddenly had a very indescribable feeling in his heart. The demon god Emperor's deployment had originally seemed foolproof to him. Attacking from both sides at the same time, the humans would be unable to resist. However, on the battlefield of the southeastern fort, the humans had already encountered one after another ninth-stage powerhouses that he didn't understand. It seemed that everything wasn't going according to the predetermined trajectory in their hearts. On the contrary, there were quite a few variables, and would these variables lead to their final defeat? However, Samakina was after all one of the 5 demon pillars of the demons. Although he was very afraid of Kair, he quickly returned to normal. His cold voice resounded throughout the battlefield, "Demons, attack!" At the same time as this shout, Samakina's body once again burst out with a strong gray light. Then, the gray halo completely integrated into his body, making his whole body transparent. The strong aura of death was completely converged, and in the distance, the undead demon pillar that belonged to him also bloomed with a dazzling gray light. Using human terms to describe Samakina's current state, it would be that he was in his own domain. Didn't the Tower of Eternity absorb my domain? Fine, I won't release my domain out of my body, let's see how you can absorb it. There was no doubt about Samakina's strength. At the same time that the demon pillar lit up, his body also expanded rapidly in the air, and in the blink of an eye, he had transformed into a huge, crystalline gray demon that was over 300 meters tall. This transformation immediately boosted the morale of the entire demon's army, and their previously suppressed speed instantly erupted as they charged towards the southeast fortress. However, at this time, before the demons above the rank 6 realm could fly up from the ground, all of a sudden, a strange aura spread throughout the entire battlefield. To be precise, it was about 2,000 meters in front of the southeast fortress, and at this time, the 100,000 demons had all stepped into this area. Under the influence of that strange aura, the demons that had just increased their speed suddenly slowed down. At the next moment, the ground suddenly lit up. This sudden change immediately caught the attention of the necromancer deity, Samakina, and an extremely ominous premonition instantly appeared in his heart. Not good. Samakina's terrifying and huge body hurriedly landed on the ground. At the same time, he waved his hands in the air, and a huge gray spear appeared in his grasp. The spear was actually flickering in a rainbow light, and it was actually a divine-grade demon weapon. However, why did Kair come here? It was to prevent Samakina from affecting Long Haochen's entire plan. As soon as Samakina's body landed, the tower that he feared the most flew towards him at an astonishing speed. In the process of flying, the purifying light released by the Tower of Eternity earlier converged within it. Moreover, at the top of the tower, where Kai stood, there was also a pure white lotus flower. On one side, there was a strong ominous premonition coming from the ground. On the other side, there was a terrifying attack that threatened Samakina's life. Without a doubt, as a deity, he definitely had to place his life first. Compared to his own life, what was the safety of his people worth? Therefore, no matter how unwilling Samakina was, he could only resist Kai-Er's attack at this moment and not care about the light that suddenly appeared on the ground. The ground was boiling. It was the boiling of the golden light. Golden patterns that were 100 meters in diameter began to appear on the ground silently. The golden mist rose and covered the height of 100 meters from the ground to the sky in the blink of an eye. Every golden pattern was similar in appearance. They were 100 meters in diameter, and there were many complicated runes on them. The magical hexagram was in the center, and the runes seemed to be alive as they floated upward along with the rising golden mist. There were about 30 such patterns, and there was a certain distance between each pattern. However, when these 30 golden patterns lit up on the ground at the same time without warning, it gave people the feeling that the plains in front of the southeast fortress had turned golden. In the distance, the Devil Race army that had just retreated was dumbfounded when they saw this scene. What kind of power was this? In the history of the war between the demons and humans, such a spectacular scene had never appeared. Humans had also never used such a method of war. But what exactly are those golden formations? While they were still in shock, the demons began to scream in pain. The golden mist was like a viscous liquid that trapped most of the demons. Only some of the demons with the strongest cultivation base rushed out of the mist and rose into the sky. However, most of the demons, especially those who couldn't fly, could only be shrouded by the mist that was filled with the aura of light. Boom! The first rumble resounded from the center of all 30 golden magic arrays. When this rumble resounded, the golden magic array at the core suddenly blossomed with a blazing golden light. The moment the light that surpassed the sun erupted, the terrifying sound waves buried the screams of all the devils. The range of the golden light explosion instantly expanded, from its original diameter of 100 meters to a diameter of 300 meters. Looking down from the sky, it looked like a huge golden fireball had appeared on the ground, and the core of the fireball was even white-hot. This was clearly a forbidden-level spell. Even if it's not a forbidden spell, it's almost there. After the first explosion, the second one followed. All 30 golden formations exploded in a short span of 10 seconds. Meanwhile, in midair, the collision between the necromancer deity Samakina and the Tower of Eternity had just ended. Unlike the golden explosion on the ground, it was white and gray colliding in the air. There wasn't a particularly strong explosion, but the entire sky was distorted at the moment when the Tower of Eternity and Samakina collided. Samakina's face was also distorted. This time, what he felt was not the terrifying soul-devouring power of the Tower of Eternity last time, but the purification power that had a terrifying power to purify all the aura of death. What was more terrifying was that when the huge Tower of Eternity slammed into him, the strange lotus at the top of the tower lit up, and white petals flew out and shrouded his body. The strong sense of crisis caused Samanaga to recklessly push his demon god transformation to the strongest degree. His whole body was like a gray gemstone, emitting the strongest rays of light. The spear in his hand blossomed with a rainbow-colored luster as he brandished it in an airtight manner. However, under this collision, a third of Samakina's 300-meter-tall body collapsed. The gray light faded, and he was only 200 meters tall. He was directly knocked thousands of meters away from the battlefield in front of the southeastern fortress. The gray light emitted by Samakina's collapsed demon deity transformation was completely absorbed by the Tower of Eternity, and Kaya reappeared on the top of the tower. She looked at Samakina from afar, and her aura did not decrease, but increased instead, firmly locking onto the demon deity transformation. Long Houchen naturally had his considerations for letting Kai come to the southeastern fortress. In terms of strength, even if Kai-Er's cultivation base had broken through to the 5th level of the demon deity transformation, and she possessed the Death Scythe and the Tower of Eternity at the same time, she would at most be on par with Marbas, and that was under the premise that the 12 holy guards were mobilized. After all, the demon deity pillars of the 5 demon deity pillars were at least existences that were close to supreme artifact. Although Kai-Er was strong, she was ultimately still weak in terms of absolute strength. However, there was a saying in this world called mutual restraint. This was true in terms of strength, but it was a different matter on the battlefield. If Kai-Er encountered the demon deity transformation Marbas of Hell, she might have fallen into a bitter battle. However, when she appeared in front of the demon deity transformation Sammakina became a tragedy. The powerful necromancy spells and abilities that he was famous for, and even his demon deity pillars, were completely suppressed by Kai. It was just like when Kai-Er suppressed almost all the undead lords in the Haoyue plane of existence by herself. In the face of the power of purification, all death auras were illusory. Long Houchen had Kai-Er come to the southeastern stronghold in order to firmly suppress the strongest demon god, the Death Spirit demon god. As for the other demon gods, there was no need to fear them. On the ground, terrifying golden spheres of light exploded one after another, and the light element even formed a frightening elemental storm. When all 30 arrays exploded, even powerhouses at the level of Kai-Er and Samanaga didn't dare to stay in their original positions and quickly fled into the sky. Of the 100,000-strong demon race army, only a few could be seen flying into the sky like flies. The vast majority of the demons were buried in that golden sea. Not to mention the demons in the distance, even the professionals of the 6 major temples on the walls of the southeastern fortress were dumbfounded. Who would have thought that such a terrifying scene would appear on the battlefield? The area in front of the southeastern fortress had turned into a golden ocean. The golden light was so violent that it could drive people crazy. Even a super forbidden spell couldn't achieve such destructive power. Even if the demon emperor were here, he wouldn't be able to stop all the magical formations from exploding. What exactly is going on? Ha ha, ha 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 ha. The temple master of the warrior temple, Yin Yonghao, stood on the battlements and laughed hysterically. He had lived for more than 100 years, but he had never felt as carefree as he did today. The 100,000 demons army of the demons was actually buried in front of the southeastern fortress. This was such an important victory. In the entire southeastern fortress, apart from the few mages who set up this fatal trap, only he knew that such a terrifying attack was waiting for the demons. This was also the reason why he remained calm. This fatal trap was specially prepared for the demons. Sammakina was completely dumbfounded. He floated in midair and looked at the boiling golden ocean below. His facial muscles were completely stiff. How is this possible? How is this possible? He wanted to shout and question crazily, but right now, he couldn't even make a sound. As the 4th deity warden of the demons and the leader of the demons, his army of 100,000 demons was actually engulfed by the terrifying light elemental forbidden spell. As he felt the destruction of the light elemental storm, he didn't have any wishful thinking at all. Even he might not be able to escape unscathed if he was in the center of the storm. Trap. This is a trap set by the despicable humans. But why would they have such a trap? There were too many questions in Sammakina's mind. At this moment, his mind went blank, and he couldn't accept the reality before him at all. He thought that victory was in sight, but he fell from the peak to the bottom in an instant. He even witnessed the annihilation of his people with his own eyes. This was a huge blow to him. It must be known that the demons had mobilized all the demons who were good at fighting. Only the old, the young, the women, and the children were left behind. It could be said that this army of 100,000 demons was the main force of the demons, and this force was also Samakina's greatest reliance. Ah! The undead demon god Samakina roared at the sky. As he roared, his gray body expanded crazily. This time, he actually grew to more than 500 meters tall. His eyes had already turned completely blood-red, and cracks had even appeared on his extremely swollen body. A dense aura of death was leaking out from within. That's right. In the face of such a heavy blow, the undead demon god Samakina was close to going crazy. From the collision just now, he could feel that Kai was suppressing him in all aspects. At this moment, he disregarded everything and directly activated the Sky Demon disintegration technique. He wanted revenge. He would only be satisfied when he killed all the humans. He was insane. He had completely lost his mind. The undead demon god pillar in the distance emitted an unprecedentedly dazzling gray radiance that shone directly on Samakina's body. A gray armor instantly covered his body. The undead demon god pillar in the distance suddenly disappeared. At the same time, the spear in Samakina's hand suddenly expanded, and gray-veined patterns appeared faintly. He had actually turned his demon god pillar into a terrifying weapon. Kai stared coldly at Samakina's transformation. Her beautiful eyes became empty. She knew that she had to stop Samakina no matter what, because no expert in the southeastern fortress could stop him in his current state. Samakina had already made up his mind to take revenge even if he had to die. 12 different colored radiances shot out from the Tower of Eternity and formed a circle to protect Kai. They were the 12 holy guards left behind by the undead calamity Electrolux. Kai was indeed confident that she could restrain the undead calamity Samakina. Her cultivation wasn't much weaker than her opponent, and the Tower of Eternity was a great deterrent to Samakina. However, she still couldn't stop Samakina from going all out when he lost his mind. His current state was just like a bow when he encountered Long Houchen. The 12 holy guards surrounded Kai in the center. The 12 of them were divided into 2 circles. 6 warriors were on the outside, and 6 mages were on the inside. All of them had all 6 elemental attribute. 6 colored radiances flashed, and the 12 holy guards formed 2 6-colored hexagrams, one big and one small, surrounding Kai in the center. The dense 6-colored radiance rose, and a huge amount of elemental energy gathered towards Kai. When the 6-colored radiance entered the hexagonal range of the second hexagon, it actually turned into pure chaotic force. This formation was invented by the undead calamity Electrolux. Back then, he relied on his own strength and the full support of the 12 holy guards to fight against the human experts of the entire continent. Although the current 12 holy guards were weaker than when they followed Electrolux back then, and had not reached the domain level, they were still 12 grade 9 powerhouses. Under their joint formation, Kai-Er's aura instantly increased exponentially. The strength of the increase was even comparable to the undead demonic god Samakina's demonic transformation. Standing at the top of the Tower of Eternity, Kai raised the scythe of the god of death in her hands. The originally black scythe gradually turned into a crystal clear white, and the dense purification force instantly turned into a huge purification halo that spread out. This was the sign that Kai had fully released her purification domain. When releasing the purification domain, Kai did not face the frenzied Samakina. Instead, she urged the Tower of Eternity to descend, and at the same time, the purification domain also descended towards the light elemental storm that was gradually weakening. If Samakina was still completely rational, he would definitely understand what Kai was doing. But now, he was already in a frenzied state. The spear in his hand pointed forward, and his huge body took a step forward in the void. In an instant, he appeared above Kai and swung his spear at Kai. At this moment, Samakina was really too strong. This attack of his tore a huge hole in the sky, and the terrifying dimensional storm wreaked havoc in the air, so much so that the light elemental storm below gathered above. However, this had unknowingly helped Kai. The 100,000-strong demon army was almost completely annihilated under the terrifying light elemental array's series of explosions, and tens of thousands of lives perished. Demons' lives were also lives. After they died, there would also be death aura. Light couldn't completely purify death, but Kai-Er's purification domain could. In the process of purifying death, it was equivalent to the enhancement of her own strength. One could see the silky white purification force being filtered out by the purification domain as the light elemental storm surged upwards, and then injected into the Tower of Eternity. After the second purification of the Tower of Eternity, it was transmitted into Kai-Er's body. In addition, with the enhancement of the 12 Holy Guards array, Kai-Er's aura also rose to an unprecedented height. The Grim Reaper scythe was raised and Kai-Er's eyes flickered. In the next instant, a sharp white light lit up in the air and collided with the falling spear. Although the size of the two sides was completely disproportionate, the moment they collided, Samikina and Kai-Er trembled at the same time. Samikina's spear was really sent flying, while Kai-Er let out a muffled grunt, and a trace of blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth. However, she still managed to break Samikina's attack. Saminaga roared. At this moment, his domain of death, in addition to the demon god transformation and the great art of demonic disintegration, had completely fused with his body. When he collided with Kai-Er's death of the seven absolutes, a large amount of his necromantic energy was dissolved. If this kind of battle were to continue, he would definitely not be able to gain the upper hand. However, Samikina had completely gone mad. He did not care about his own safety at all. He turned the spear in his hand, and the gray on his body instantly condensed into the spear. All the runes on the spear lit up, and a terrifying aura erupted. The spear actually turned into a demon god pillar that was hundreds of meters long in the air, and directly smashed towards Kai-Er. The power of the demon god pillar was really terrifying. Among the 72 demon god pillars of the demons, only the 5 great demon god pillars could directly use their own demon god pillars as weapons. An unprecedentedly huge pressure suddenly fell on Kai. Even though she had absorbed a large amount of the outside world's death aura and converted it into purification power, she could not help but have a huge change in expression. This was clearly Samikina's desperate attack. In a flash, Kai-Er and the 12 Holy Guards disappeared from the Tower of Eternity at the same time. The Tower of Eternity spun wildly. At the top of the tower, a flourishing lotus bloomed, and collided with the undead demon god pillar in the air. At the same time, the Tower of Eternity rapidly descended, dodging downwards. Every flourishing lotus bombarded the undead demon god pillar, causing a series of big explosions, but still could not stop it from falling. Finally, the moment the Tower of Eternity floated to the ground, the undead demon god pillar smashed down, hitting the top of the Tower of Eternity. A violent roar shook the field, and the surrounding light element storm was dispersed by this terrifying energy wave. A large number of demon corpses could be seen on the ground, and those that could leave behind the corpses were demons with relatively strong cultivation when they were alive. Those with low cultivation had long been annihilated. The Tower of Eternity was hit by the undead demon god pillar, and 4 floors had sunk, leaving only the top 3 floors above the ground. The purification light emitted by the entire Tower of Eternity suddenly dimmed a lot, and there were even many cracks in the surrounding air. Kai-Er appeared again, and the Tower of Eternity quietly disappeared. In the next instant, Kai-Er had already rushed into the sky with the 12 Holy Guards. The Grim Reaper scythe flew out of her hand, and soared hundreds of meters in the air, slashing at Samikina. Facing this purifying blade's attack, Samina unexpectedly didn't dodge in the slightest. The demon god pillar brazenly swept out, looking as if it wanted to perish together with Kai. What a lunatic! Kai-Er's eyes flashed with cold light, and her figure instantly retreated in the air. Of course, she did not want to perish together with Samakina, but the Grim Reaper's scythe still slashed at her opponent. Although Samakina's mental state was crazy, his combat instinct was still there. The back of the demon god pillar rose up, knocking away the Grim Reaper's scythe. At the same time, at least 50 gray runes suddenly flew out from the front of the demon god pillar, and went straight to Kair. The terrifying power turned into a death storm in the air. The purification power could purify the power of death, but when the power of death was concentrated to a certain extent, it would take enough time to purify, and Samakina obviously would not give her this time. Figures quietly stood in front of Kair, forming a human wall, and rays of colorful light exploded in the air. Kair groaned again, and her body was blown back thousands of meters in the air. She let out a cry and spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, her body shone with a golden light, and more of the impact was dissolved. After all, the aura of death couldn't really hurt her. However, among the 12 holy guards, 6 warrior holy guards had been torn to pieces by the terrifying power of death. They needed enough time to revive in the Tower of Eternity. Samakina gave people a feeling of invincibility. He raised the demon god pillar again, but this time, he let go of Kair and went straight for the southeast fortress. The soldiers of the southeast fortress were in a state of extreme excitement, but they all saw the changes in Samakina in the air. The undead demon god in this state was too terrifying. A ray of colorful light swept across the sky, flying towards Samakina. It was the power of Yi Sanmi's godly bow. Samakina didn't dodge at all, and let the terrifying arrow fall on his body. The attack that could instantly kill the arcane demon god Jabwa landed on Samakina's body, but it only caused a crack and didn't hurt his body. Samakina's demon god pillar continued to fall fiercely on the southeast fortress. At this time, the experts of the southeast fortress could no longer hide their strength. All the eternal heroes shone with dazzling brilliance. Even though they knew they couldn't win, they had to make a move. Otherwise, if Samakina's demon god pillar fell on the southeast fortress, it would be a disaster, and even the city walls would be completely destroyed. Although the demons were almost completely annihilated, there were still more than 300,000 demon army outside. Without the protection of the city walls, the southeast fortress still couldn't hold on. Kair's figure appeared once again, in front of all the powerhouses on the city wall. The scythe of the god of death in her hands shone with splendor, changing continuously in the air, looking like a graceful dance. The domain of purification was withdrawn in a flash, raising her cultivation to the peak, and the power of the domain for me burst forth. First absolute death's death. Second absolute death's purification. Third absolute death's howl. Fourth absolute death's kiss. Fifth absolute death's extermination. The 5 absolute were used at the same time, turning into the 6th absolute path of death. This was Kair's strongest attack in her life. The purification domain turned into a huge light blade that slashed towards Samakina's undead demon god pillar. A terrifying collision occurred in the air, and the howls of countless wraiths resounded in the air, but they were instantly swallowed by the purification domain. At least half of the gray on the undead demon god pillar disappeared under the purification of the path of death, but the Tang god pillar only managed to block Kair's Grim Reaper scythe. Clang! Amidst the explosion, the Grim Reaper scythe was bounced up high, while Samakina's huge body also retreated a few hundred meters, and the deathly aura on his body greatly decreased. However, Kair's situation was much more miserable than his. She spat out 2 mouthfuls of blood, and her entire body directly collided with the wall of the southeast fortress. She only stabilized her body after crashing through the wall for 30 meters. In order to help Kair block the attack, the remaining 6 holy guards' bodies were all shattered. At this moment, she seemed to be at the end of her rope. Samakina was too terrifying. More accurately, it was the demon god pillar that was too terrifying. It was an existence that was close to a supreme divine weapon, and it could still completely suppress the Grim Reaper scythe even though its attributes were countered. However, Samakina was definitely not in a good state right now. Casting the demon god transformation and demon disintegration at the same time was extremely taxing on his body. He wouldn't be able to defeat Kai under normal circumstances, but he was completely suppressed under such circumstances. It was evident how terrifying his consumption was every second. After the attack was bounced off by Kai, Samakina's body trembled violently, and the red light in his eyes showed signs of dissipating. However, he still raised his demon god pillar again, and the terrifying aura was raised to the extreme once again. Even if he died, he would drag the soldiers of the southeast fortress down with him. The power of death in the second half of the demon god pillar extended forward frantically. Even the armor on Samakina's body had completely transformed into the power of death and was infused into the demon god pillar. His next attack would be even more terrifying than the previous one, because it might very well be his final all-out attack. In the sky, the remaining demons fell into a frenzy when they saw their patriarch launching a destructive attack in such a manner. They dispelled the fear in their hearts, and under the lead of the 4 great demon kings, less than 10,000 high-level demons pounced towards the southeast fortress. Demons were demons, after all. Even though they were ambushed by a deadly trap, they were still about to breach the southeast fortress at the last moment. Samakina had never expected that his original plan of letting the other demons become cannon fodder for his demons would end up benefiting others instead. In the distance, the Nephilim army and the demon gods had no intention of coming forward to help. The Nephilim army was exhausted and the demon gods were already on the verge of exploding with dissatisfaction towards Samanaga. Seeing that the Nephilim army had suffered such a huge loss, they could only gloat. Naturally, they were overjoyed to see Samanaga attacking the southeastern fortress at all costs. As long as the southeast fortress was breached, they would be the biggest beneficiaries. As for whether Samakina lived or died, it had nothing to do with them. Perhaps many of them might even rise in the rankings because of Samakina's and Jiabwa's death. Kai was in excruciating pain, and her body was constantly flickering with a golden luster. This was obviously the light of the life-sharing soul chain. If it weren't for the existence of the life-sharing soul chain, she would have been severely injured. She never expected the undead deity to be so terrifying when he went berserk. At the same time, she realized her mistake. As an assassin, she shouldn't have faced Samakina head-on, even if she thought she had the absolute advantage. Kai struggled to jump out of the wall, and at this moment, the 9 eternal heroes from the Assassin Temple, as well as the 3 eternal heroes from the Assassin Temple and the 20 warriors of the 9th step from the Warrior Temple, had already thrown themselves into the battle, clashing with the demons. Among them, Chiu Yonghao, Yi Sanmi, and the other 4 eternal heroes gathered together and floated in the air. Each of them released their domain to the strongest extent, and faced the undead deity pillar that was descending from the sky. They faced it with the determination to die. In this state, Samakina's attack power had reached above the stage 9 level 8. With such terrifying power, if they didn't pay with their lives, how could they stop it? Yi Sami didn't forget to turn back and smile at Kai as though saying, "Child, I'm counting on you for the rest of the battle." "No!" Kai screamed and raised the Grim Reaper scythe again. But at this time, her entire body was in excruciating pain. The intense pain made it impossible for her to exert her previous powerful strength. She could only release the Tower of Eternity again and slam into Samakina. However, she was still a step slower than Chiu Yonghao, Yi Sanmi, and the others. At this moment, Kai-er's body suddenly lit up with a silver light. Sensing the fluctuation of the silver light, Kai was stunned for a moment. Then, her agitated emotions immediately calmed down and turned into unprecedented confidence. Chapter 293. In the next moment, a white figure stepped out of the silver light. With just one step, she surpassed the 6 people in front of her and arrived in front of the descending necromancy demon pillar. A huge golden vertical eye suddenly appeared in the air. Thousands of golden rays shot out and turned into countless rays of light, which violently stimulated the huge necromancy demon pillar. The violent explosion and roar sent Xiao Yonghao, Yi Sanmi, and the rest of the 6 flying back. Meanwhile, the golden vertical eye that was over 100 meters tall relied on its dazzling golden light to block Samanera's all in one throw. Brahma's eye. In the current situation, there were only 2 people who could use Brahma's eye, and there was only one who could locate Kai and appear here in time. The chairman of the Temple Federation, the leader of the Light of Dawn monster hunters, the owner of the throne of God of eternity and creation, and the Knight of the Seal Long Houchen of the Knights Templars. Long Houchen naturally had countless backup plans for Kai to challenge Samakina alone. Among them, the most important backup plan was the attack in front of him. He and Kai were connected by the nimble chain, so he was naturally the first to sense when Kai was injured. It was the power of the instantaneous flash domain that allowed him to instantly appear beside Kai. A simple instant flash domain naturally couldn't teleport Long Houchen so far, but Long Houchen relied on his formidable spiritual energy, as well as the location of Kai instant flash domain when she left, and was able to instantly appear and launch this attack. It could be said that this attack was a mirror image of himself. After all, the distance was too far, and he couldn't truly teleport his body here through the instant flash domain, so he could only temporarily break space. Boom! A terrifying power exploded in the air, and the necromancy demon pillar was forcibly blasted away by the Brahma's eye. The radiance of the huge golden eye gradually disappeared, and Long Houchen, who was wearing the armor of eternity, descended proudly. At this moment, the morale of the southeast fortress was raised to the extreme. Through the promotion of the magical image, Kai and Long Houchen were absolute idols in their hearts. The appearance of these 2 idols and the defeat of the necromancy demon god Samakina was a huge boost to the morale. Moreover, Long Houchen's attack was not over yet. He raised the huge golden sword in his left hand, and a spot of purplish-gold radiance spread on the sword blade, slashing towards the necromancy demon pillar from afar. Suddenly, a purplish-gold blade of light that was only a dozen meters in diameter flew towards the demon god pillar in Samanera's hand, while the white eternal sword in his other hand shone with a 9-colored radiance and pointed in the direction of the southeastern fortress. The sky turned golden all of a sudden. It was raining. Golden raindrops fell quietly and gently on the top of the southeast fortress. Every warrior and mage that was sprinkled by the golden raindrops would be covered in a layer of faint golden light. However, when the same golden raindrops fell on the bodies of the demons, they would emit smoke, causing them to scream in agony. Light-type forbidden spell, Divine Rain. The power of the divine rain produced by the eternal sword as a magic staff was far greater than when Long Houchen had used it in the past. The golden raindrops almost covered the entire top of the southeast fortress. The situation that was originally extremely dangerous was instantly reversed after Long Houchen appeared. At this moment, Kai had already brought her Tower of Eternity to Long Houchen's side. Meanwhile, the necromancy demon god Samakina in the distance seemed to have woken up from his frenzied state, and the reason for that was Long Houchen's purplish-gold sword. The purplish-gold light accurately hit the necromancy demon pillar. Even when Kai cast the 6th of the 7 ultimate spells, Path of Death, it did not leave a single mark on the necromancy demon god pillar. However, a huge crack that was a few meters deep and more than 10 meters long had appeared on the pillar, and a terrifying purplish-gold light was emitting from it. When Samakina sensed the terrifying aura of destruction, he finally regained his senses. In shock, he channeled all his remaining energy into the demon god pillar. Boom! Amidst the loud noise, the part of Samakina's demon god pillar that was hit was shattered by the power of the demon god pillar. At the same time, He threw the necromancy demon god pillar in the direction of the demon camp, while he pounced in the direction of Long Houchen and Kai. Even though they were on opposite sides, Long Houchen couldn't help but secretly give Sammakina a thumbs up. As soon as he arrived, he found that Sammakina's mood was abnormal. Obviously, the plan he arranged worked and made him completely crazy. After being attacked by Long Haoyue's bloodline power, Sammakina was able to judge the real situation the moment he regained his senses. He was indeed powerful. Sammakina obviously found out that Long Houchen was not his real body, but just a mirror image. Therefore, he broke his demon god pillar immediately and threw the main body of the demon god pillar back to the demon camp. He didn't want Long Houchen to have the chance to destroy his demon god pillar again. Obviously, his demon god pillar was only broken, and it would not be completely destroyed. Long Houchen secretly sighed in his heart. The silver light on Kai Er's body had reappeared. Long Houchen's white figure also became illusory. At this time, it became Kai Er alone facing Sammakina's attack. Kai Er hated this guy to the bone. Samina clearly knew that he wouldn't have a good ending after using the great art of demonic disintegration, but he still chose to self-detonate to protect his demon god pillar. The Grim Reaper scythe was raised high above her head. Kai Er's eyes instantly turned white. Not only that, even her hair and lips turned the same white as the purification power. Wung! The scythe of the god of death let out a fierce buzzing sound. Immediately afterwards, a huge white silhouette appeared behind Kai Er, and then Kai Er disappeared. The huge figure held the Grim Reaper scythe and suddenly looked up at the sky. With this glance, the sky turned into a vast expanse of white, and everything on the battlefield froze in an instant. The white figure gradually became solid. It was a tall, handsome man who looked about 30 years old. His long gray hair hung down, his eyes were also white, and there was a white armor on his body. There was only a diamond-shaped gray gem on his chest. Even the demon army in the distance was completely frozen at this moment. This was no longer as simple as coercion, but an indescribably terrifying aura. This aura even made the demon god pillars tremble. The huge figure held the Grim Reaper scythe and let out a cold snort at Sammakina, who was frozen in midair. Then, the Grim Reaper scythe brought up a white electric light in the air. It was as though in this space, only he could move. This slash was so fast that it seemed as though the heaven and earth would be split apart by this slash. A white scar appeared on the undead demon god Samanaga's body from head to toe, and a large amount of gray air began to emit from it. Samanaga's eyes, which were filled with unwillingness, were filled with fear. The man in white raised the Grim Reaper scythe high in his hand, and the gray air immediately surged toward the Grim Reaper scythe, instantly turning into circles of white halos that stagnated in the air. This process seemed very slow, but when Sammakina's body completely collapsed in the air, and a gray demon god crown appeared in the hands of the man in white, the stillness disappeared. Everything was like memory fragments, collapsing in the hearts of everyone who saw it at the same time. Floating in the air was Kai Er, while Sammakina's corpse was split into two halves and falling from the sky. Yes, this was the last of the 7 ultimate skills of the Grim Reaper that Kai Er had comprehended when she let out that mournful scream and instantly broke through the final barrier, Grim Reaper. When Kai Er became the Grim Reaper's favored, she obtained the abilities of the 7 ultimate skills of the Grim Reaper. However, even though she had to pay a terrifying price to use the 7 ultimate skills, she could only use the first 6. There was always a barrier between her and the 7th. This barrier was because her cultivation base was not high enough, and it was also because she did not have enough comprehension. But at this moment she had completed it. She had finally completed it. After the holy law of necromancy and calamity, necromancer Electrolux took Kai Er as his disciple. The biggest help he gave to Kai Er was not to increase Kai Er's cultivation, but to eliminate all the negative effects and backlashes of the Grim Reaper's scythe. This was achieved by Electrolux with his demigod powers. Death God's seventh ultimate, Death God. This was no longer borrowing the power of the Grim Reaper, but the true body of the Grim Reaper descending into the world to launch an attack. If before Electrolux helped Kai dispel the backlash, she would have to pay with her life to launch this attack. This was the terrifying ability of a god's favored. If Long Houchen had always been a god's favored of the goddess of light, then when his cultivation reached a certain level, he could also cause the goddess of light's body to condense and descend to the human world. The Grim Reaper that Kai summoned was not a real body, but a condensed form of the Grim Reaper's aura from the entire plane in an instant, launching an attack that could destroy heaven and earth. However, the current Long Houchen obviously did not have such an ability, because his own physique was already the physique of a god, and the goddess of light was no longer enough to become his faith, so naturally, he could not summon her to descend. However, there was no doubt that Long Houchen's own potential was even more terrifying. Whether it was the power of the eternal armor or the power of his own combustion, they could also reach this level. Among the 72 demon god pillars of the demons, the undead demon god Samakina, ranked 4th, had fallen. When Samakina's corpse fell from the sky and landed on the ground, turning into dust and dissipating in the air, both sides could not help but fall into a daze. The powerful demon god of death had actually been killed in this war. Furthermore, he had been killed after using the demon god transformation and sky demon disintegration. This was too shocking for all the demon gods of the demon race. The demons who were originally attacking crazily seemed to have taken some kind of enhancement drug, and the effect of the drug instantly ended. The 4 demon kings immediately stopped attacking and took the lead to fly back, aiming for the undead demon god pillar. The undead demon god Samakina was dead, and a new undead demon god would inevitably be born among the 4 of them. Such an opportunity was likely to come once in a lifetime for them, so who would have the time to deal with humans? As soon as they retreated, the remaining demons were bathed in the sacred rain, so how could they still fight? The offensive collapsed in an instant, and the remaining less than 5,000 demons quickly retreated, flapping their wings and flying in the direction of the demon army. The powerhouses of the southeast fortress chased for a few miles and killed nearly 1,000 demons before returning to the southeast fortress. Kai did not return to the southeast fortress. After using the last move of the Grim Reaper's 7 ultimate moves, she directly descended from the sky and disappeared into the Tower of Eternity. The Tower of Eternity landed in front of the southeast fortress out of thin air. The 100-meter-tall tower flashed a faint light of purification, purifying the souls of the dead on the battlefield. At the same time, the purification power was channeled into the tower for Kai to heal and recover. Retreat and set up camp. In the distance, the remaining demons gave orders to the various races of the army at almost the same time, retreating 20 miles and setting up camp. In addition to being shocked, they also had their own plans in mind. This battle could be considered a failure, and a crushing one at that. The demons actually suffered the greatest loss, almost completely annihilated. Even the commander of this army, the undead demon god Samakina, was killed in battle, so the responsibility for this defeat naturally belonged to the undead demon god. Obviously, the southeast fortress was a super difficult bone to chew. They all saw the terrifying magic array, so who would dare to lead the army to continue charging forward? Moreover, the demon army was now exhausted, and their morale was also low to the point of mutiny. The dozens of demons gods could only regroup their troops and make plans after reorganizing. What they could do now was to report this battle to the demon emperor as soon as possible and ask the demon emperor to make a decision. At the same time, they were very clear that this southeast fortress was probably impossible to conquer. In contrast to the demons, at this time, the southeast fortress was already a sea of joy. Almost all classes of humans were shouting the names of Long Houchen and Kai. In their hearts, the heroes saved the southeast fortress and killed the undead demon god. For a time, these two leaders were almost totemic existences in the hearts of the soldiers of the Southeast Fortress. Although the Southeast Fortress suffered a lot of losses in this battle, their strongest forces did not suffer too many losses, and the morale of the demons was already low, so it would not be easy for them to repeat today's situation. Chiu Yonghao's cheeks were red with excitement, and his eyes were full of tears. This great victory really made him see the hope of humanity breaking through the darkness. The eternal heroes also had a strange light in their eyes. This great victory also made them see the light of dawn. Dragon resisting pass. With a muffled groan, Long Haochen woke up from his meditation. The eternal armor on his body turned into 13 streams of light and merged into his body. With a flash of golden light, Long Yiting also transformed from the Sword of Kings to a human. Previously, Long Haochen had used the Eternal Sword and the Sword of Kings that Long Yiting had transformed into, two divine swords that were close to transcendental divine weapons, to unleash the Brahma's Eye. Coupled with the fusion of the Eternal Domain and the Light God Domain, he was able to withstand the final backlash from Samanaga. His face was slightly pale. Long Haochen closed his eyes again and immediately entered a meditative state to cultivate. Yiting came to sit behind him and pressed her palms on his back. She poured her pure light elements into Long Haochen's body to help him recover. Traveling through space and continuously using the Brahma's Eye and the Divine Rain, the burden on Long Haochen was quite huge. Although he did not expect Samakina to be so difficult to deal with, he had finally achieved his goal by relying on his backup plan. He had killed the Death Demon God. The only pity was that he did not destroy the Demon God Pillar at the same time. However, with Samakina's death and the Demon God Pillar heavily damaged, it would be impossible for the new generation of the Death Demon God to regain his original strength without 100 years of cultivation. The reason why Kai Er could appear in the southeast stronghold, which was so far away from the dragon-resisting pass, was because of the Temple Federation's thousands of years of accumulation. Among this accumulation was a kind of spatial treasure called the Fixed Transmission Scroll, which could only teleport one person to a fixed location at a time. There were only 3 such fixed transmission scrolls. Kai Er arrived at the southeast stronghold by relying on this scroll, and withstood the most powerful death demon god. She could have used the Tower of Eternity to bring more people there, but Long Haochen considered the deployment of the southeast stronghold, in addition to the huge pressure brought by the Demon Emperor in the dragon-resisting pass, and finally decided to let Kai Er go alone. After Kai Er's cultivation recovered, she still had to use the second fixed transmission scroll to return. Moreover, the task that Kai Er shouldered was far more than this. The Eternal Heroes played a decisive role in this war, turning the tide and destroying the main force of the demons, and the light magic arrays were the credit of the Eternal Heroes. The Eternal Heroes had been sleeping for thousands of years, but they were not sleeping all the time. After all, they themselves had a lifespan of thousands of years. Among them, some of the magicians spent a long time studying some of the magic left behind by the ancient elves. Needless to say, they really found some doorways, among which the biggest harvest was the existence called Magic Trap. The principle of Magic Trap was very simple. It was to solidify a magic in a certain location, and at the same time install a guiding device, which could be triggered in different ways. It could be triggered immediately when the enemy stepped into the range of the trap, or it could be triggered by remote control. Relatively speaking, as long as there were enough materials, making magic traps was even more convenient than making magic scrolls. However, it involved many of the magic mysteries of the ancient elves, which had long been lost in modern times. The Eternal Heroes brought this magic secret back to the human world, and at the same time, used it on the battlefield. However, there were only 3 magicians who could set up Magic Trap. After weighing the pros and cons, Long Haochen decided to let all of them set up the traps at the southeast fortress. Although the 6 major professions had been deployed, the highest strength of each fortress still belonged to the temple of the fortress. The warrior temple and the soul temple were much weaker on the battlefield. In addition, the demons under the undead demon god Samakina were too powerful. Instead of scattering the abilities of the three magicians to set up traps, it was better to concentrate their strength and surprise the undead demon god, thus completely establishing the situation of the southeast fortress. Although there were some twists and turns in the process, in the end, Long Houchen still achieved the goal of the battle. With the accurate information from Yu Yi, the demons were dealt an unprecedented blow, and the spirit of the demon army was completely destroyed. It was almost impossible for them to break into the southeast fortress again. In the entire plan of Long Houchen to fight against the demons, the battle of the southeast fortress was the most important. Only by winning this battle could he lay the foundation for all the following strategies. If it weren't for the fact that he was worried that the demon emperor might attack at any time, he even thought of going to the southeast fortress himself. As night fell, the top of the southeast fortress was still brightly lit. The strong festive atmosphere even caused fireworks to be released in the southeast fortress. Under Qiu Yonghao's orders, the soldiers even set up a large pot at the top of the wall, cooking fragrant pieces of meat. The soldiers guarding the city were not allowed to drink alcohol, but they had enough meat and food to fill their stomach. That's right, after experiencing such an unprecedented victory, how could the three armies not be rewarded? On the other hand, the demons were in a much more miserable state. After a long-distance raid and a continuous battle that lasted for a day and a night, the evil demon race, the only force that could be considered alive, was almost completely annihilated. The four great evil demon kings were still fighting for the undead demon god pillar. Although the remaining army of over 300,000 was not a small number, they were extremely exhausted. More importantly, in order to travel at full speed, coupled with the fact that Samakina had absolute confidence that they could break into the southeast fortress in the shortest time possible, the supplies that the army brought were quite limited. Seeing that they had entered the rhythm of a long battle, the dozen demon gods had no choice but to carefully distribute the limited military rations after a discussion. While sending people to quickly report to the demon emperor, they also sent people back to the central province to mobilize supplies. This process would take at least half a month to a month, but the military rations they brought with them could only last them for 10 days at most. They also had to live frugally. Therefore, even if the demon army was exhausted after setting up camp, each demon only ate the equivalent of a bowl of porridge and a steamed bun for humans. Not to mention meat, there was not even meat soup. Having just experienced such a big battle, the morale was already extremely low, and the food was not enough. One could imagine the indignation of the various races in the army. However, a mutiny would not happen after all. After all, there were more than a dozen demon gods here to suppress them. In addition, the demon army was too tired. Therefore, after eating the food that was not even half full, most of the demons immediately fell asleep in their tent. There were even some demons who did not even have tents and directly fell asleep in the wilderness. Fortunately, this was the southeast fortress and not the dragon-resisting pass. Otherwise, the weather alone would probably cause the demon army to rapidly lose members. The demon emperor's strategy was actually very correct and effective, concentrating the strongest elite forces in the dragon-resisting pass, but the number was small. With the strength of all the demons above the 8th order, the environment would not affect them at all. Long Houchen admittedly attracted the demon emperor, the moon demon, and the star demon over there. But at the same time, the demon emperor also believed that he had attracted the 9th order human powerhouses to the dragon-resisting pass. One of the reasons why he was not in a hurry to attack was to give Long Houchen time to mobilize the 9th order human powerhouses. The demon emperor had absolute confidence in this. And without enough strong powerhouses, or at least without support, how could the southeast fortress and Wanshou Pass resist the attack of his two armies? It could even be said that Samakina did not make any mistake. Although he was selfish, looking at the overall attack strategy, as long as he broke into the southeast fortress in one fell swoop, then all problems would not be a problem. Whether it was the demon emperor or the necromancer demon god, their biggest mistake was to completely estimate the original strength of the human race, ignoring the true foundation of the human race, and not knowing that the eternal hero was coming out. In a sense, this could not be considered a mistake, after all, who could predict such a situation? But because of this, the battle situation was completely changed, and the absolute advantage of the demons gradually began to decline. The humans of the southeast fortress were celebrating, while the demon army was depressed and resting. This should have been a relatively peaceful night for both sides. However, a scene that was not peaceful quietly appeared. Unknowingly, the tower in front of the southeast fortress had disappeared. Regarding this, although the demons noticed, they did not pay too much attention. After healing, Kair would definitely return to the southeast fortress to rest. The night pervaded the air. Perhaps it was because of too many killings, but the light of the stars and moon tonight was very dim. Dark clouds gradually gathered, and rain began to fall. It actually began to drizzle. However, the physical resistance of the demons had always been strong. Even when it rained, the demons sleeping outside had no intention of waking up. They were too tired. Even the demon gods who were guarding the place had all taken a rest. Although they were very depressed after the battle, they did not expect the southeast fortress to make any move. Late at night, the rain was getting heavier. A wolf demon sleeping in a relatively low-lying area was woken up by the rainwater that spread to his nose. Cough cough. Climbing up, the tall and strong wolf demon looked at the sky with sleepy eyes and cursed in his heart. Even the heavens were against it. It rained last night. Looking around, it was obvious that it was impossible to sleep in a tent, but it still needed to find a higher ground, preferably a place with some shelter, to continue sleeping. The continuous battle made its whole body sore, and there was a deep wound on its thigh. Under the stimulation of the rain, the pain made the wolf demon feel irritated. Suddenly, the air in front of it twisted quietly. Immediately after, it felt a slight coldness in its throat, as if something hot was gushing out of its neck. All its strength was instantly drained. The wolf demon's body swayed a little, and it slowly fell to the ground under the support of a force. At the last moment of its life, it only vaguely saw a black figure flash and disappear. Kair nimbly flickered in the air. Her excellent concealment of her presence made her seem like a part of the wind. Wherever she passed, the demons sleeping outside would often be killed by the Grim Reaper while they were still asleep. Soon, she approached the core of the demon camp. Dozens of demon god pillars stood there in an orderly manner, but at this moment, their light was very dim. As for Samakina's demon god pillar of the dead, it was outside the camp. The 4 demon kings were still fighting to inherit the position of the demon god of the dead. In order to protect them from being affected, the remaining demons were also gathered there. After entering the core of the demon camp, Kair did not continue forward. Instead, she stopped, looked at the sky, and went invisible again, quietly waiting for something. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Kair's body reappeared in the air. "It's time," she murmured, raised her right hand, and pointed in the air. A pure white light instantly soared against the wind, and fiercely bombarded the dozens of largest tents. It was the Tower of Eternity. At the moment when the Tower of Eternity appeared, dozens of demon god pillars lit up almost at the same time. Obviously, they had also discovered the existence of Kair. One by one, figures broke out of the tents, but what greeted them was the shroud of a huge pagoda. "Seal!" Kair shouted, and a strong white halo instantly shot out from the Tower of Eternity. The bright light instantly bloomed, and actually shrouded the dozens of tents. Then, the volume of the Tower of Eternity also soared to 100 meters high. In an instant it fell and actually shrouded the dozens of figures that just broke out of the tents and then crashed to the ground. The tents where the demon gods lived were surrounded by the demon god pillars in the center. When the Tower of Eternity was launched, it drilled through the gaps of the demon god pillars, so it was discovered by the demon gods immediately. However, these demon gods never thought that the Tower of Eternity was not attacking them, but directly shrouded them. This was another magical function of the Tower of Eternity, called suppression. Boom, 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 boom. There was a violent roar in the Tower of Eternity. Obviously, more than a dozen demon gods were attacking frantically, trying to rush out of the Tower of Eternity. But this was an artifact, and its sturdiness could be imagined. In addition, the power of purification also had a certain restraining effect on the dark attribute of the demons, and it isolated the connection between them and their own demon god pillars. If they wanted to rush out of it, it would not be possible in a short time. Kyr floated up and landed on the top of the Tower of Eternity. She held the Grim Reaper scythe in her right hand, and drew a white light shadow in the air. At the same time, she sat cross-legged on the top of the Tower of Eternity, and integrated her powerful purification domain into the Tower of Eternity. The white light in the air was a signal, representing a quarter of an hour. The Tower of Eternity suppressed more than a dozen demon gods at the same time, and it could last for a quarter of an hour. And at the same time as the purification light of the Tower of Eternity shone in different directions in the demon camp, a light shadow also lit up. A total of 21 Grade 9 powerhouses in the Warrior Temple, plus all 12 Eternal Heroes, appeared in different directions in the demon camp, and as soon as they appeared, they tore the scrolls in their hands and threw them into the demon camp below. The demon camp, which was extremely calm a moment ago, had become a place of dazzling fireworks in the next instant. Groups of strong magic light rose in the crazy magic elements, devouring a large number of demons' lives. All of this happened so suddenly that the demons were not prepared at all. Those magic scrolls that were quickly torn apart were at least grade 7 and above, and all of them were large-scale magic. For a moment, the demon camp was in chaos, and the terrifying lethality of magic and dazzling halos rose and erupted crazily. The demons were really too tired. Even if they were attacked like this, many demons were unwilling to wake up from their sleep, knowing that they were covered by magic and felt intense pain. Only then did they wake up. The strategic battle was decided by Long Houchen and the Federation counselors in the Dragon Resisting Pass, and now the scrolls used by the powerhouses were naturally the accumulation of the Alliance for thousands of years. As the saying goes, good steel should be used on the edge of the blade. Even when they were defending the southeast fortress, Qiu Yonghao was not willing to give the order to use them. Finally, during this raid, the greatest power erupted. Long Houchen's plan could be said to be interlocking. Who would have thought that the southeast fortress would still have the strength to launch a counterattack after going through such a bitter battle? Especially the dozen or so Eternal Heroes, every one of them was a domain master. After tearing apart the scrolls, they immediately began a crazy massacre. The combat power of a Grade 9 powerhouse could be imagined. In a situation where there was no opponent of the same level to stop them, it was a one-sided massacre for low-level enemies. Especially the 3 Grade 9 magicians, each of them completed a forbidden spell after using up their scrolls. For a moment, the demon camp was a sea of blood and mountains of corpses. And in this battle, the most crucial point was Kyr. She forcibly sealed more than a dozen demon gods. Otherwise, if they could have reacted in time and borrowed the power of the demon god pillars, they would have been able to reduce the losses of the demons to the minimum. Even with their tyrannical strength, it wouldn't have been easy for the powerhouses of the southeastern stronghold to retreat. Another advantage was that the demons were not in the camp. Although the main force of the demons was destroyed, the remaining thousands of demons were all Grade 6 or Grade 7 powerhouses. With the addition of the 4 great demon kings, if they were in the camp, they could at least effectively resist this sneak attack of the humans. But now they were busy fighting for the inheritance of the undead demon god. The internal conflict of the demons magnified the power of this sneak attack by the powerhouses of the southeast fortress to the greatest extent. Of course, it was not that the demons did not see the changes here, but the 4 great demon kings had their own subordinate. At this time, who would be willing to give up the inheritance of the undead demon god? Of course, they pretended not to see and continued their battle. The magical fluctuations of the Tower of Eternity became more and more intense, and Kai, who hadn't fully recovered, was already finding it harder and harder to hold on. But she was very clear that the longer she persisted, the greater the blow to the demons. Kai was getting more and more proficient in using the domain of purification. On the battlefield, she didn't need to worry about her purifying power running out of supplies. With a large number of demons dying, a huge amount of death aura would naturally appear. Under the cover of the domain of purification, this death aura would gradually transform into a part of the purifying power. Relying on this amplification, Kai was able to stabilize the seal of the Tower of Eternity. Otherwise, she might not have been able to hold on for even a minute. After all, it was the joint attack of more than a dozen demons. More than 30 Type 9 powerhouses were not stingy with their consumption as they slaughtered the fiends in a frenzy. A few powerhouses even destroyed the fiend race's granaries, causing the fiend race's already stretched logistics to be even worse.